The anime begins with a girl dressed in white fighting some blue monsters. These monsters were the ones that killed erythrocytes, also known as red blood cells. Later, we see a boy who is also a red blood cell, and he is scared by the death of his classmates. He feels helpless when he sees them on the ground because, despite working hard, they cannot change anything. At that moment, the girl who is a leukocyte, also known as a white blood cell, tells him that the body needs them, so they must continue working. But as she says that, a blue monster appears and she cuts it in half with her sword. Then, in a change of scene, we see the boys dressed in red who are on the first day of school to become erythrocytes. There the teacher is welcoming the students, but the young man is writing down every word the teacher says. Then they play a video to show them what they have to do, and there we realize that they are in a human body. In the video they explain that veins are the place where red blood cells are responsible for transporting oxygen to all parts of the body. After that, it is mentioned that leukocytes, or white blood cells, are responsible for eliminating foreign substances, and that lymphocytes eliminate cells infected by a virus. And then there are macrophages, which clean the body and also use those pathways. After this, we know platelets, which repair damaged veins. That means that they are responsible for closing the wounds when we cut ourselves. The video explains that organs are very important for our body to function properly. It also mentions that there are organs and cells whose job is to protect red blood cells. They inform us that the digestive system is responsible for absorbing nutrients. And finally, it says that although organs work in different parts of the body, they are all partners and work together. Later, we see the students walking around as he studies the notes he made during the video. Upon arriving at the place where the older boys are going to train them, they ask them to take 2 boxes of oxygen per person to transport them. In this, the children ask the elders if they are going to teach them well, but they respond that the body needs many workers and that they will learn while they work. Then, one of the older ones comments that they are going to have a lot of work because they are red blood cells and their job is to distribute oxygen. After this, the floodgates open and the boys quickly run towards the stomach. But then, one of them begins to complain about the work, since it is more difficult than he expected. And then everyone separates, but the protagonist doesn't know where to go. Suddenly, the platelets appear and tell him that they are in a hurry. Upon arriving at the place, the person in charge of the stomach explains that the food is stored there and disinfected with gastric acid and then dissolved. After this, the protagonist says that his name is AA2153. However, the stomach manager scolds him for being late in delivering the oxygen, but he asks him to forgive him for it being his first day at work. In that, the man comments that they have worked a lot for that body. Despite this, it only gets worse due to fatigue and lack of sleep. Additionally, he overeats and drinks alcohol. Afterwards, the man asks the boy to bring more oxygen. Later, we see AA2153 carrying 2 boxes, but in that moment, a lady from the cell area tells him that they also need oxygen to work, so he answers that they have sent him to bring oxygen only to the most important parts. Suddenly, a larger erythrocyte appears, and it tells the woman that it is going to bring her oxygen. Later, the man tells the boy that he lied to the woman so that she would be calm, since it is impossible to get more oxygen, because that body is in very bad condition. Then, he comments that that body didn't used to be like this, and that it's a bad time to go to work. And their AA2153 asks him if it is a bad time to work, why he keeps a smile on his face. He responds that he has to hide his emotions and his tiredness. Only in this way will he be able to smile. There, he realizes that the man does not smile with his eyes because he does not really feel happy. Later, they find pieces of fat on the road. There we see that there are some men filling the potholes with grease. In that, the man comments that they are the LDL, and that these are the villains of cholesterol, because they are responsible for filling all the places with the fat produced by the liver. Then, he says that due to stress, the fat oxidizes and creates bulges that prevent them from passing through. This causes the defenses to lower, and with low defenses more bacteria appear, which are the blue monsters we saw at the beginning. Upon hearing this, AA2153 asks him if that body can survive. However, the man laughs and tells him not to worry too much. After that, he mentions that his job is to distribute oxygen and hide his emotions. Then in a scene change, we see that the boy is tired of going around the whole place, and there, the man tells him to take a break. But suddenly, another boy who has been there longer appears and tells him to get up, since they don't have time to rest. After this, they are walking and suddenly monoxide smoke begins to come out of the walls, and there the boy who has been there the longest, along with other erythrocytes, begin to have trouble breathing and turn red. Then, they transform into zombies and begin to attack the man in AA2153. Suddenly, more blue bacteria called pneumococcus appear, and these bite the erythrocytes that were already turned into zombies to search for nutrients. There we realize that it is the scene from the beginning because the girl appears who eliminates the bacteria and is part of the white blood cells. She then apologizes for being late because there are too many in other parts of the body. After that, she kills the pneumococci by piercing them with her sword. And there, the man tells him that they have to continue delivering oxygen, since that is their only job. After that, the man runs away through the smoke. However, we see that he begins to transform into a zombie. Seeing this, he gets scared because he has to go through there. But the girl stops him by grabbing his shoulder and asks him to come with her. In a scene change, he thanks the leukocyte girl for saving his life. After this, they go to the lungs to investigate why there was monoxide smoke. When they get there, they discover that the lungs are very dirty. This is because the body has been smoking for more than 10 years. AA2153 doesn't understand why someone would smoke and asks the girl, to which she answers that the nicotine in cigarettes is addictive. In that, we hear that they call on the erythrocytes to collect oxygen and distribute it throughout the body. In the next scene, we see the boy going to distribute oxygen, and in that, he finds one of the largest erythrocytes that is bothering another by giving him more work to distribute. Later, AA2153 sees a macrophage. These are responsible for trapping and eliminating bacteria. The one he sees is covered in blood on her clothes and is dragging a bacteria shaped like a three-headed octopus. As he passes by her, he hears the girl talking to herself and saying that she must continue killing. But just then, he makes a noise and she quickly turns around and puts the knife to his neck. After this, the girl sees that he is an erythrocyte and apologizes, since she thought it was a bacteria. Their AA2153 realizes that the macrophages are just as tired as he is. Then, it goes to the mouth to deliver oxygen. However, upon arriving there, he finds that the workers are engulfed in flames. And there, he hears the teacher's voice saying that this is known as a mouth ulcer. This is caused by lack of sleep or poor hygiene. Seeing this, AA2153 does not know what to do and opens his guidebook, but the only thing that is written there is that its task is to deliver the oxygen. Suddenly, he thinks he needs the sheet sign to show his bosses that he did his job. At this, an explosion occurs and the blade falls from his hands and burns. There he remembers when the man told him that he should hide his emotions. But in this, AA2153 says that he is not capable of doing it. Suddenly, a worker who is burning tells him to run away, since the mucosa is broken and bacteria are going to enter. In this, 3 bacteria arrive and one of them steps on the worker and kills him. Then, we see that A2153 is scared, and when they are going to attack him, the leukocyte girl appears along with 2 other girls, and they kill the bacteria. After that, she recognizes him from the last time they saw each other, and while they talk, one of the bacteria wakes up, but they start to eat it. However, AA2153 covers his ears so as not to hear the sound while they eat him, and there, he remembers when the professor explained that they absorb bacteria to dissolve them. Afterwards, the girl tells him that oxygen is important, so he can't let go. But in that case, they flood because the person is gargling medicine, so she holds AA2153 so that the current does not carry him away. After the medicine is gone, the girl congratulates him for not releasing the oxygen at any time. After this, she wishes him luck and leaves with the others. There we see that A2153 stays looking at her, in love. After that, he and the other boys are resting from work and AA2153 comments that he was close to dying on several occasions. The older workers arrive there and say that it has been a difficult day because the body is stressed. After that, alcohol begins to come out of the ceiling sprinklers because the person is drinking. There we heard the professor say that alcohol can help relax the nerves. Meanwhile, the boys begin to get drunk on alcohol. And at that, the old man tells them that they have worked hard, so he is going to take them to a place to relax. Later, we see that the old man takes them to the liver, which is an organ with many functions. One of them is to create important substances for the body. There the kids get excited, since they have always wanted to go to that place. The old man then comments that the liver is the largest organ in the body, and after that, they enter a place where there are girls working. But AA2153 is nervous because the girls are pretty. There they are served a liquid called ADH that is used to remove alcohol from the body, and everyone takes it there. However, AA2153 hears that the erythrocytes are complaining about their work. Then they begin to emit black smoke. After that, the girls explain that this smoke is necessary to be able to remove the alcohol from their bodies. Then, one of the girls makes a bunch of glasses appear with a liquid called LDH, which serves to stop feeling drunk and forget all your problems. Suddenly, AA2153 becomes angry when he sees that everyone can easily forget their problems for a while. Even though they work very hard, they get killed every day, and no one cares. Then he yells at the girls that their jobs are easier than his. And while AA2153 is yelling at them, the old man throws the liquid in his face and tells him that's enough. After that, the old man asks him to accompany him and takes him to a secluded place. There, AA2153 hears one of the girls comment that they are also tired and sick from working so much. However, they do not complain and keep a smile on their faces. Seeing this, AA2153 starts crying and feels ashamed of how he yelled at them. There, the old man tells him that young people are the only ones who can change the future, and that he is counting on them. After this, AA2153 apologizes to the girl for being rude, but she tells him not to worry, since she knows that erythrocytes work very hard. She then tells him that she can come back there whenever he wants. While this is happening, they realize that the old man died sitting peacefully. After this, they load it and take it to a girl who absorbs it as a nutrient for the body. Seeing how they absorb the old man, they become sad, since they have to transport oxygen throughout their lives, and then be used as nutrients. Later, we see that the girl who AA2153 yelled at says goodbye to him by giving him a kiss. But just then, the leukocyte girl comes out of the sewer and sees that A2153 is with another girl. There, he gets scared and tells her that it is not what it seems. In a scene change, he and his friend feel like vomiting from their hangover. But there, the chief tells them that they cannot rest any longer and asks them to transport the oxygen in memory of the old man. Then, AA2153 thinks about the old man and says that now he wants to work harder, like a good red blood cell. After that, it starts raining alcohol again. At that moment, we heard the professor explain that drinking alcohol during a hangover can relieve the headache and the urge to vomit. Later, AA2153 passes by the cell lady again. There, she tells him that she lied to him about the oxygen and that she is going to complain to her bosses. Then, we see those who are in charge of monitoring the state of the body. They are worried because conditions are getting worse. In this, they tell all the workers that the body is going to enter a state of excitement. And in a scene change, AA2153 brings an oxygen tank to the cell lady, but she tells him that it is very little. And while they are talking, they hear a call for all the red blood cells to gather in one place. When they get there, they are asked to generate an erection. However, when they go to the place, they explain to them that the roads are smaller, so they have to pass one by one. While they are in line, one of the older ones arrives and pushes AA2153 to take his place. Then they make fun of him. Suddenly, the leukocyte girl appears to defend him. She and the other two girls tell AA2153 that they are going to accompany him. After this, they reach the testicles, and they explain to him that sperm is created there, which are in the shape of babies. These are saved so they can grow a little and be ready to go out. For that reason, it is important for red blood cells to complete their work and achieve an erection. Then, we see that the erythrocytes run at full speed to enter and expand the walls. However, erection levels drop and the walls begin to recede, pushing the boys out of the tunnels. There, the bosses realize that the erection is not going to be enough to extract the sperm. Then, AA2153 seconds friend says that they must leave or else they will be crushed to death. At that moment, AA2153 answers that he is not going to run away, since they are the only ones who can do that work so that the babies are born. After this, the friend says that she will accompany him, and together they begin to push the walls. And when the bosses go to give the order to the erythrocytes to leave, they see that the levels are increasing. There they realize that the person is taking a medication to open the pathways so that red blood cells can pass through. At that, all the boys come running to help AA2153 and his friend. When they arrive, they begin to push with all their might, and when they reach the maximum, the babies are expelled, so the erythrocytes manage to complete the mission. After this, the bosses ask them to get out of there, but in that, we see that the white blood cell girls are attacked by bacteria. In a change of scene, AA2153 and the red blood cells are resting. However, he is happy because the babies managed to reach their destination. Suddenly, the leader of the erythrocytes tells him that it does not always happen like this, since it is not in all cases to create babies. Upon hearing this, AA2153 becomes sad that the babies have died and could not be born. But suddenly, the leukocyte girls appear and they are injured. There, the leader comments that during the meeting, bacteria called gonococci entered, After that, we see a scene where the leukocyte girls are fighting those bacteria. There they explain that gonococci are very strong bacteria that cause the disease gonorrhea. After that, they ask the erythrocytes to go to a safe place, and they will fight them. Later, AA2153 is talking to some boys, and there, they tell him that it can be very dangerous for gonococci to have entered, since these bacteria multiply very quickly. Then, AA2153 passes through an alley and there are some girls crying, scared by the bacteria. However, he approaches and calms them down by telling them not to be afraid, because the girls are fighting them and they will win. In that, the girls are fighting, but there are many bacteria that have killed several of them. Seeing this, the leader tells them to withdraw so they can organize themselves better and fight with more strength. Then they notice that the bacteria are advancing rapidly. Soon, these could affect the area where sperm is created and endanger future babies. Later, AA2153 and the boys are going to distribute oxygen. And they are afraid, since now the roads are not safe because of the new bacteria. At this, a group of leukocytes comes, and AA2153 seconds friend shouts at them to do their job well, because they need it to be safe to be able to work. There, the leader of the girls tells him that they are going to do everything possible to win. However, they are all tired and hurt. Then, we see the girls planning how to fight in the best way. And there the boss appears on a screen and asks everyone to fight to the death if necessary. Later, AA2153 and his friend are worried because they were sent to distribute oxygen in the area where the bacteria are found. There, the leader of the red blood cells tells them that they must go since no one else wants to do it. And the young people are the ones who have to do the most dangerous work. After that, the girls are on their way to fight. But there, the captain tells them that they will not be able to win the war against the bacteria because these multiply quickly and can only be killed with medicine. And while she is speaking, the leader yells at her to be quiet. There we see that she did it so that the captain would not continue scaring the others. After this, she realizes what she was doing to them and tells them that their duty is to eliminate bacteria. And that's what they will do. Later, the captain asks the leader if it was wrong to tell the girls that they will lose the war, to which the leader replies that she thinks the same. They just can't tell them. After that, they reach the urethra. There the friend tells AA2153 that that place is full of gonococci, but she tells him not to worry since the white blood cells are going to protect them. At this, the friend comments that AA2153 has become stronger since he met the leader of the leukocytes. Afterwards, they find many dead girls on the ground, but they hear that one of them is still alive, and when they are about to get closer a bacteria appears from behind. However, the girl gets up and kills her with her sword. After this, she whispers that she has to stop them, but as she says it she faints, and there a macrophage traps it, which is responsible for getting rid of dead cells and bacteria. This woman tells them to prepare, because there are more bacteria ahead. Then, we see the girls fighting, but gonococci are much stronger than them and have resistant armor, in addition to being able to regenerate their body parts. There, AA2153 and the friend arrive. They feel terrified when they see that all of them are trapped by bacteria. At that, the leader tells them to get out of there. However, AA2153 ignores her and shouts that he is going to fight like them. And while he says it, lightning falls from the sky and makes the bacteria weak. There we see that what is happening is that the body is taking a medicine called Penicillin, which serves to combat infections caused by bacteria. After this, the leader and the others let go and begin to kill the bugs that are now smaller. Afterwards, she tells AA2153 and the boy to run, as they will make way for them so they can deliver the oxygen. There, AA2153 is impressed by the work of white blood cells and how they kill bacteria. In a change of scene, the head of the leukocytes is congratulating the girls for the good job they did. And thanks to that, they were able to defeat the gonorrhea disease. However, they are sad because many girls died in the fight. Among those is the captain. At that, AA2153 seconds friend apologizes for having yelled at them earlier. However, the leader understands the boy's anger, and there we see that the dead are released through the urethra, mounted on small boats. After this, there is a man angry about the white blood cell deaths. He tells a woman that the girls are very weak, and because of that, they almost lost the war. Then, he mentions that T lymphocytes are more powerful, and that they are the only salvation for that body. After that, they explain that lymphocytes are professional killers that exterminate cancer cells, or cells that are infected by a virus. There, the boss says that they are the strongest of all, and if they had fought against the bacteria, there would not have been so many losses, as happened with the leukocyte girls. Saying this, the man shouts to his officers that it is time to work. In a scene change, AA2153 is handing out an oxygen tank to the cell lady. There, she tells him that he looks stronger than before, and that he seems bigger, to which AA2153 responds that it is because now he feels better about his job. But at that point, the lady tells him not to feel so well, since he still doesn't do his job so well because he doesn't bring him enough oxygen. Then, he is happy to make a delivery to the hair root, which is the part of the hair that remains under the skin. Afterwards, AA2153 is surprised because when he turns around to place a box, there are many of the same people. And there, they explain that they are hair cells. After this, he mentions that even if the body is sick or stressed, they must continue producing hair. There we see that one of the workers finds a white part. However, an old man called Pigment Cell appears, whose function is to paint the hair when some gray hair appears. Seeing this, AA2153 is excited about the amount of work that there is in the human body. Later, he finds the leukocyte girl who is exercising, but we see that he is still recovering from the fight. There, she tells him that if he stays looking at her that way she will be distracted. So AA2153 feels sorry for her and apologizes. Then, they're talking and she feels bad for all the girls who died, and says she wants to get well soon so she can get back to work. After this, the girl comments that the words he said when they fought against the bacteria saved her life. And there, he blushes and comments that on the contrary, thanks to them who fought so hard, now he doesn't complain about his job. But then, the lymphocytes arrive, and they are angry because of them. They now have to work harder. And while she speaks, AA2153 defends her, saying that they risk their lives. However, by saying that, the girl accepts everything the officer said, and then they leave. There, the girl tells AA2153 that no matter what they say, they have to keep peace between everyone. After that, the head of the lymphocytes orders them to attack some bacteria, but the assistants tell him that the officers have to rest. After this, the boss gets furious and says that they are the most powerful and must eliminate all bacteria from the body. And as he speaks, he almost faints from exhaustion. And there, the assistants ask him to rest, but he doesn't want to. Later, we see that he has a red button, which we don't know what it is for. Then in a scene change, the officers pass through the hallway. But now, these look different, since they have a white light in their eyes, and they repeat the same thing. There, the platelet girls get scared and mention that they were always scary. Afterwards, they say that it seems like someone is controlling them. Later, we see AA2153 and his friend going to distribute oxygen. There, he thinks that the lymphocytes are working hard. However, thanks to them there are almost no bacteria in the body. In that, they walk through the head area. But they cannot go there because there is a path that is covered with grease, so they decide to go another route. There they discover that the hair area is burning, and after this, the hair cell comes to ask for help, but it falls to the ground. Then, AA2153 asks him if it was a virus or a bacteria that caused that. And there the leader of the lymphocytes comes out of the flames. After this, he steps on the cell's face and begins to hit it, like the other officers who are hitting the other cells. There, we see that they all repeat that they have to eliminate bacteria. Seeing this, AA2153 asks why they are doing it, and then the old man with the pigment cell arrives and asks them to stop. But at that, the leader throws him away. Afterwards, AA2153 goes to the old man, and he tells him that the officers arrived and began to destroy everything. At that, the hairs begin to come out from the roots, and the sad old man says that this is his life's work, and they are damaging him. Then, desperate AA2153 asks him to stop. However, they do not pay attention to him. In a change of scene, we see that a general asks the chief of officers to stop the attack on the hair, but he refuses, since he thinks there may be cancer cells there, so he orders his men to eliminate everything that looks suspicious. After that, the leader continues hitting the hair cells, and their AA2153 seconds friend tells him to flee. However, AA2153 remembers what the leukocyte girl told him about seeking peace among everyone. Remembering this, he tells the friend that they have to carry all the oxygen they can, and then comments that that is the only thing they can do. The boss then presses the red button to make his men more powerful and work harder. There the officers begin to transform, but upon seeing that, AA2153 and the other boys bring oxygen to protect the hairs that remain. After that, some robots appear and they begin to attack the lymphocytes. Then they explain to us that they are called steroids, which is a medicine that is used to stop hair loss. And there, one of the robots attacks the boss. After this, AA2153 tells the leader that he doesn't have to work anymore, and upon hearing that, he falls to the ground and starts crying. Later, we see all the lymphocytes captured and tied up by the robots. At that, the students comment among themselves that the lymphocytes were so tired that they attacked the hair cells. And just at that moment, another problem occurs in the body and the urine area begins to fill with blood. After that, AA2153 and his friend slip on a green liquid on the floor and walls. There, they both laugh when they see that they are covered in that disgusting liquid, so they decide to go to the kidney to clean themselves. There they explain that the kidney has the function of cleaning the blood from the body. Girls called glomeruli work in that place, which are responsible for bathing the erythrocytes. Then we discover that the water they bathe with turns into urine. After that, there are some red blood cells that are bothering the girls. They tell them that their job is very easy to do, unlike theirs who have to transport oxygen everywhere. Seeing this, AA2153 tells the girl that he does understand the hard work they do, since they must work all day long, every year without rest. There the girl comments that her body is very sick because she eats and drinks too much, but as he says that, an old woman yells at him to shut up and go back to work. After that, the girl tells AA2153 to be careful when going to the ureter area. In a scene change, they are passing through the area the girl talked about. Suddenly, the walls break and a large sharp stone appears. In that, they explain to us that its name is kidney stone and it is a stone that is created in the kidney. This causes a lot of pain and does not allow urine to pass. Seeing this, AA2153 flees with his friend. However, the walls open and the other erythrocytes fall into the urine. Next, he tries to move the stone that is causing kidney pain. But while he does so, a device appears that launches a beam that breaks it into pieces. This happens because the person is being operated on by a doctor to remove stones from their kidney. After that, AA2153 is excited because the leukocyte arrives with the other girls, and there, she tells him that they should go to a safe place. After this, the platelets arrive to repair the damage to the walls, so AA2153 realizes that they also work hard. Later, the leukocyte girl tells AA2153 that bacteria entered through the urethra, and in that, those in charge of monitoring the body get scared, since this can be very dangerous. After this, the bacteria come to fight against the white blood cells, so the girl tells AA2153 to run from there. Then, they explain that the body has two kidneys, therefore, if the girls lose that battle, it can function with only one. After that, AA2153 arrives to tell the girls who work in the kidney to flee. However, the old woman tells him that they are not going anywhere. At that, one of the girls approaches and asks the old woman to let them go, but as soon as she says it, a giant bacteria appears and attacks her. Suddenly, the old woman gets in the way and the bacteria passes through her. After this, the leukocyte girl comes out and stabs the bacteria with her sword, killing it on the spot. Then, the old woman is losing a lot of blood and knows that her end is near. There she takes advantage of her last moments to apologize to the girls for having been so hard on them, and is glad that she did something good by saving her life. And before dying, she asks them to continue working well. In a scene change, the Luke girls are fighting, however, they are very few since many of them died in the previous war. After that, we see that they are not going to win the fight, and suddenly, robots appear that begin to eliminate the bacteria. There, they explain to us that they are medicines that are responsible for fighting infections. In a change of scene, AA2153 and his friend are delivering oxygen to the cells outside. However, the friend hands over one that is damaged and it explodes, releasing a gas that turns one of them into an old man. Then, we see that the boy is sad because he was the cause of that happening. There, some cells arrive, and they start yelling at him for delivering a tank in poor condition. At that, AA2153 arrives to defend his friend. There he tells them that it was not his fault, rather, that occurred because oxygen is damaged because the body consumes too little vitamin E, in addition to smoking and eating poorly. After that, he tells them that instead of looking for blame, they must work together to save that world. After this, the boys accept what AA2153 says and leave. And upon hearing him speak, the friend is surprised by everything he said, because he realizes that he knows a lot about that subject. However, AA2153 worries and says that it is very sad to know that the oxygen they distribute could be damaged. Later, we see that they are at the awards for the best erythrocytes, and there they give AA2153 a prize for being the worker who has delivered the most oxygen during the month. In this, the red blood cells are surprised by how good AA2153 is. And there, the teacher mentions that he is the pride of his class. However, the friend feels sad and disappointed because he has not achieved anything because he is very cowardly and always wants to run away from problems. When leaving, the older erythrocytes approach the boy to tell him not to hang out with AA2153 and to accompany them to a special place. But he does not accept the invitation. Then, the boy is on his way to distribute the boxes, and their AA2153 appears and tells him that he is going to accompany him to deliver the oxygen. After that, he gets angry and tells AA2153 that it is not necessary for him to accompany him, since he is not that fast. Later, they reach the capillary area and discover that there are few hairs, and those that are there are very thin, since most were burned during the fire. There we see the cells, but they are tired. Then, they comment that due to the stress on the body, all the remaining hairs are falling out. Later, they are going up the stairs and the friend cannot go up due to the weight of the box. However, AA2153 tries to help him, but he yells at him that he doesn't need help. After that, they reach the sebaceous gland, and they realize that that is a dirty and oily place. A man works there whose job is to store fat to keep the skin shiny and hydrated. There, he asks them to place the oxygen tanks, since he needs them to explode the fat he has stored for so long. In that, we see that they become sad for the Lord, because he has to die when the fat explodes. However, he is happy because that is his job and finally the time has come to help the body. Then he says he's been working his whole life for that moment. Then he asks them to leave quickly because he doesn't want them to watch when all the fat explodes. After this, they run out of there, and in the explosion, AA2153 realizes that the tank that the friend brought was damaged, so stinky green smoke begins to come out. There they explain that they call this old man smell, and it occurs when damaged oxygen meets fat. Then we see all the hair workers holding their noses because of the bad smell. And there the friend feels guilty because the man worked all his life, and his death was of no use. At that AA2153 tells him that it was not his fault, and that it was surely for another reason. But the friend yells at him that the two of them are very different, since AA2153 does everything right, but he does everything wrong. After this, the boy leaves and asks AA2153 not to follow him. Then in a change of scene, the friend is sad, and there he meets the two largest erythrocytes. They tell him again that they want to take him to a special place, but this time he accepts. Later, we see that the place they were talking about was the small intestine. There are many red blood cells gathered together. At that point, liquid starts to rain, so everyone gets excited and goes to work harder. Then, they explain that this liquid is called an energy drink, and these serve to make you sleepy and keep you with more energy. Later, AA2153 is walking and the friend passes by, but this one is running very fast. There, he tells her that he feels better since going to the energizing rains. However, it doesn't seem good to AA2153, since when it rains he feels good for a while, but then he has less energy than before. Then after this, the friend tells him that when he runs out of strength he should drink again. But AA2153 doesn't like that idea, and thinks there must be something wrong with that. In that, we see that he does not care how bad it may be, and while they talk, it rains again, so he fills up with energy and runs away. Later, AA2153 is in the nose area, and there the erythrocytes pass quickly. There, the friend laughs at AA2153 and tells him that he is delivering the oxygen very slowly as if it were new. But then, a wall of the nose breaks, and the erythrocytes begin to fly out of the hole. After this, they explain that this happens when the body drinks too many energy drinks, so the veins in the nose rupture and begin to leak blood. Then, we see a lot of air coming out of the hole, and AA2153 is holding onto an iron bar. There another red blood cell tells him that it is going to help him. However, AA2153 sees that his friend is in trouble and tries to help him, but he tells him that he does not need his help. After this, he reaches a safe place and tells the friend to jump there. At that, he tells him that he no longer has the strength because the effects of the drink have gone. And there they show us that drinking too many energy drinks creates dependency and causes headaches or fatigue. Then, AA2153 yells at him to jump, but he ignores him and says that he is useless, since he always wants to flee from attacks. So he prefers to die than continue being a hindrance to AA2153. However, AA2153 answers that thanks to him he is stronger, and that without his help he could never be a good worker, and in that, he remembers the moments when his friend helped him. And there, he starts crying and says that thanks to AA2153 he wants to continue living. In that, he gains strength and manages to take the hand of AA2153 who pulls him towards him. There, AA2153 and his friend laugh at what happened, and after this, the platelet girls arrive to repair the damage to the hole. In a change of scene, we see that the older erythrocytes again tell the boy to go to the place and drink energy drinks. However, he rejects them because he already knows how bad they are if taken too often. And there he goes with AA2153 to continue his work. In that, he feels proud that his friend has stopped doing those things and is happy again. In a change of scene, the leukocyte girls head towards the leg area. In this, their leader comments that the body has not slept for 2 days, so this can be dangerous. But when they are walking, they cannot continue moving forward since the path is blocked. And there we see many red blood cells that are dead in a hole. AA2153 then brings oxygen to the lady of the cells. While there, she tells him that she found out that he won the award for Best Worker of the Month. After this, the cell lady gives him some advice. She tells him that he should not become arrogant for having won the award. Although she scolds him, deep down she is happy because she knows that he is a good person. Later, AA2153 tells his friend that he notices that he is happier now. And he answers that he feels better since he no longer drinks energy drinks. At that point, they run away because monoxide smoke starts coming out on the road. There the friend explains that the body is smoking. This makes it more difficult for them to transport oxygen through the veins. After that, the leader arrives and congratulates AA2153 for the prize he won. In addition, he tells them that he is worried because there are fewer and fewer red blood cells, and those that are there are very tired. After this, alcohol begins to rain on the body, so the leader tells them that they must go to the liver to cleanse that substance. And there, they can find the pretty girls who will help them. And in a change of scene they reach the liver. However, they realize that something is not right. The place looks dull and dirty, and there aren't as many people working there as before. There, the leader comments that many stores are closed. And while he says that, AA2153 worries about the hepatocyte girls. So, they run there. But when they get there, they see that it is empty and it doesn't look as nice as before. Suddenly, one of the girls arrives and apologizes for the state of the place. He explains to them that the body has been consuming a lot of alcohol, and that has affected the liver. For that reason, everything is in very bad condition. And there we realize that the girl looks tired and sick. Because of this, she cannot attend to them. Then, AA2153 and his friend reach the calf area. This is one of the most difficult places to reach because you have to climb a slope. There we see that the friend is very tired. Suddenly, the larger erythrocytes appear and tell him that if he drank energizers with them, he wouldn't be tired. But at that point AA2153 asks them to stop bothering him, since his friend does not want to continue drinking energizers. Afterwards, we see that the characters continue to work their way up the calf. Suddenly, the ground breaks and one of the other red blood cells falls out. As we got closer, we discovered that the boy fell into the hole we saw at the beginning, which is full of dead blood cells. After this, they explained to us that they call this a thrombus, and it occurs when the red blood cells fall into a place in the vein and do not allow the other erythrocytes to pass through to distribute the oxygen. After that, they mention that this happens to the veins when the person does not move their legs. While they are standing watching, the adults arrive and kick AA2153. However, his friend catches him and holds him by one arm. And there, they step on his fingers so that he lets go and falls into the hole. But just as they are about to let go, Leukocyte Girl appears and picks them up. After that, AA2153 thanks the girl and tells her that she always saves his life. And she tells him that he does it too. Later, the girl tells them that this is not the only thrombus there is, since she has found several of those all over the leg area. And in that, we see that the blood pressure increases and a wind takes the erythrocytes out of the hole and turns them into a giant ball, so they must avoid it. After this, the ball of people rolls down the road and crushes several boys. They're AA2153. His friend and the girl run to stop it because if it reaches the lung, the person will die. Afterwards, the ball remains stuck in the wall before entering the lung. Then, the girl tells AA2153 that they must get her out of there. But there they discover that the two largest erythrocytes are in the ball, and one of them is already dead. However, the one who is still alive tells them that there is nothing more to do, because the lungs are clogged, and that is why the erythrocytes can no longer distribute oxygen to that area. Then, we see that the workers inside the lung are left without light and air, making it difficult for them to breathe. There, those who monitor the body realize that it is running out of oxygen. Seeing that they cannot move the ball of people, AA2153 says that there is another way to distribute oxygen to the lungs, and asks the other red blood cells to help it. Then, the girl tells him that they are the only ones who can save the body. Later, the boys reach the bronchial arteries. However, it will be very difficult for them, since the roads there are very thin. And at this, the boys begin to enter one after another carrying the oxygen tanks. Then, we see that the ball begins to fall, so the white blood cell and the other blood cells enter through the door. And when they are there, one of the workers tells the girl that all that was thanks to AA2153 and the other boys. After this, she thanks him for doing something no one else could, and then she shakes AA2153 seconds hand. And in a change of scene, the girl is scared when she realizes that there are no other white blood cells in her body. After this, AA2153 is next to the leader. He tells him that young people have to change the world, and that is why he has people like him. Later, they pass by the area of the testicles, and the leader tells him that they have not been to that area of the body for a long time, since it is not necessary to produce an erection. This is because the body suffers from stress and no longer feels sexual desire. Then, he says that before they had to go there every day, but now, that place looks old and shabby. While they are talking, a type of fungus called ringworm appears, and there, the leader comments that these creatures cause itching. However, he doesn't know how they got to this place. After that, AA2153 goes to the area of the testicles to distribute oxygen, but there he discovers that there are very few sperm babies left. At that moment, a girl who is part of the Sertoli cells arrives. These are in charge of caring for and feeding the babies. There, she explains to AA2153 that the lack of babies is due to the fact that there is very little testosterone in the body. Hearing this, he asks her if the person will be able to have children, but she replies that there are more serious problems to worry about right now. Later, AA2153 is sad because of what the girl told him. Just then, his friend arrives, and he asks him if something is wrong, to which he responds that he feels bad because his body is deteriorating rapidly. And besides, the remaining red blood cells are very tired. Suddenly, the leukocyte girl appears from the ceiling. There, she asks them if they have seen any white blood cells, but he answers that he has walked through many parts of the body and has not seen any other. After this, the bosses comment that it is worrying that there is no other leukocyte girl besides the leader. Then, the leader tells AA2153 that if there are no white blood cells, they will not be able to defend themselves against viruses and bacteria. And after saying that, he runs away. In a change of scene, AA2153 and his friends see that there are new workers. However, these are very few compared to all the students who were there when they entered. In this, he mentions that by smoking and drinking alcohol, the body is creating fewer and fewer red blood cells. And there one of the new ones recognizes AA2153 and runs to greet him. There, the boy tells him that he admires him for all the times he has saved the body by risking his life. And upon seeing AA2153, the professor tells him that he is the hope of that world. Then he asks him to teach the boys how to work. In this, AA2153 accepts. However, he feels sorry because he does not believe he is such a good teacher. After this, he is on his way to deliver with the two new guys. There one of them asks him how he can be as good as him, and he responds that he has nothing special. He just works hard every day. Later, we see that he is teaching them how to work. But the boys are very clumsy and slow, so AA2153 gives up his oxygen and theirs. When he finishes, the boys are very tired and thank him for helping them. And there, one of them takes out a piece of paper from his pocket that he forgot to hand out. After that, AA2153 takes it and realizes that the place is at the foot, so it is very far from there. Then, he offers to go alone to bring the oxygen, and asks the boys to rest, since it is their first day of work. Later, we see AA2153 who is very tired, and there the friend appears, who tells him that he does not have to do the work of the new ones, since on their first day, they were made to work harder. Afterwards, the friend tells him that he has to rest, but AA2153 insists that they must try harder since now there are fewer people. After that, they reach a path that is dark and full of puddles on the ground. Suddenly, the ringworm fungi that we saw earlier appear. There, the leukocyte girl arrives and begins to eliminate them. Then she says it's a lot of mushrooms and there will be more to come. There they explain to us that ringworm fungi can appear in various parts of the body and make the skin itch or hurt. After that, those monitoring the body call for reinforcements. However, there are no longer white blood cells. After this, we see that the two girls who are friends of the leader arrive. There, they say that they spent several days looking for more leukocytes but they did not find anyone. There, the three girls begin to kill the mushrooms, but there are too many of them. And when they are about to lose the fight, water comes out of the walls and the current carries away the Tina. After that, light sources appear and these eliminate the remaining fungi. In that, they explain to us that this is a medicine that cleans the area and ends ringworm quickly. Then, the girl finishes off the last remaining mushroom, but we see the three of them very tired. Afterwards, the bosses ask the girls to go and eliminate all the fungus from the testicles, head and nails. And there, AA2153 tells him that this is impossible, since they are 3 white blood cells and they are very exhausted. However, the leader gets up with the girls and they go to fight. After that, AA2153 is thinking about all the effort they are making, so it starts to work even harder and runs to deliver the oxygen. After this, he slips and falls to the ground. There one of the new ones approaches, but AA2153 yells at him that they must work harder or else the body will die. Seeing how AA2153 is upset, his friend approaches and recommends that he has to rest, but he yells at him not to get involved. There, the friend answers that he will not leave him alone at this moment. At that, he begins to remember all the times when AA2153 was with him and did not abandon him, and there he calms down. After this, we see that the friend takes AA2153 for a walk and simply does nothing. Their AA2153 tells him that they must go back to work, but he tells him that from time to time he should take time to do nothing and rest. Upon hearing this, AA2153 comments that he already knows why he sometimes runs away during work. After that, the friend tells him that it is good to sit down and think from time to time, since the world is not going to stop if he leaves for a while. On the contrary, having a short break takes away your stress and makes you return to work stronger. There, AA2153 understands what his friend is saying, and together they stare at the people while they talk and keep each other company. Then in a scene change, the friend sees that AA2153 looks better and no longer has stress. There, he thanks him for showing him that he doesn't always have to work. Later, they reach the lungs and there's the new guy. At that, AA2153 remembers when he yelled at them, so he approaches him to apologize. But while he apologizes, the boy responds that he and his friend are very sorry for giving AA2153 too much work. After this, he tells him that it was his fault, since he wanted to do all the work. This made him angry at them for nothing. To which the boy responds that they relaxed because they thought AA2153 was perfect and didn't get tired. Then, an erythrocyte arrives and tells all the red blood cells that there is an emergency in the stomach. Therefore, they must go with all the oxygen they can. Afterwards, AA2153 and his friend are impressed to see the acids in the stomach, and how it dissolves the food we eat. After that, the cell in charge of the stomach tells the red blood cells what work they should do. There he comments that this is the most dangerous place in the body, so his job is to keep the acid under control. But right now they need his help, because there is a giant ulcer that has broken the walls. Then, he says that if they don't repair it, the acids will melt the stomach and burn the entire body. Therefore, he needs them to bring oxygen to the workers who are repairing the crack. Later, we see that the boys do not believe what the man told them. Suddenly, the roof breaks and acid begins to fall, burning 2 red blood cells. After this, the man runs and grabs the 2 boys, however, they do not survive the burn. There, the other cells arrive that close the hole, and then the platelets come to repair the damage. At that, the man apologizes to AA2153 and the friend, saying that they are used to seeing these types of accidents there. He then explains that cracks in the stomach form mainly because the body eats a lot of fat, drinks alcohol, smokes, and has stress. And there, he tells them that if they are afraid they can leave, since that place is not for cowards. Upon saying that, the friend runs away. After that, we see that the friend is hiding while the other boys are carrying the oxygen. Then, a wall ruptures, killing another red blood cell. There is AA2153 loading the tanks with the boys, and going through very dangerous places. At that point, he is carrying a box but, due to a tremor, it falls out of his hands and one of the tanks rolls away. Suddenly, his friend appears and picks him up. Their AA2153 tells him that he thought he was not going to return, but he replies that he was just taking a break. After this, we see that the walls and roof of the stomach can no longer resist and break. And with that, a giant dragon-shaped bacteria comes out. Upon seeing it, AA2153 wonders how it can survive in acid. To which the man responds that this bacteria is the real cause of the ulcer, since it creates toxic substances that hurt the walls of the stomach. At that, the 3 leukocyte girls appear and begin to attack the dragon. There, AA2153 realizes all the effort that the white blood cells make when fighting, and tells the friend that they must distribute oxygen quickly. After that, we see them running to deliver the tanks, avoiding obstacles along the way. and at this, one of the walls cracks. From there the acid comes out and it falls on a 2153 seconds leg. However, he gets up to continue working. Later, we see the girls fighting the dragon and the leader stabs the sword in its eye, so the bacteria crashes into the walls due to pain, causing tremors. Later, he and his friend realize that the ground is going to break. There, the man yells at them to run, and while they are running the ground breaks behind them. Their AA2153 falls to the ground due to the pain in his leg. But in that moment, his friend pulls him to a safe place, saving his life. However, he dies when he falls into the acid. At that, AA2153 tries to look for him but it is too late. Seeing this, the man yells that they can't do anything, and that his friend is already dead. Then, he throws him against the wall to prevent him from getting closer. And then, the platelets arrive to repair the hole. There we see that A2153 is mourning the death of his best friend, while remembering all the moments they spent together. At that, a giant robot appears and destroys the dragon. There they explain to us that this is an antibiotic that is used to eliminate bacteria in the stomach. Seeing how he easily defeats him, all the workers are happy and begin to celebrate. However, the Lord says that this will not change anything, since the body is increasingly damaged. After this, the leukocyte girls meet A2153 walking sadly. There, they are surprised that he does not greet them. At that, the leader picks up his glasses that are on the ground. In a scene change, we realize that some time has passed and AA2153 has not left his room. There, we see that the bosses leave many messages on the phone for him to go to work. However, he is very sad about his friend's death and can't stop thinking about it. And in this, he says that it was all his fault for falling, since his friend died saving his life. Later, the leukocyte girl is thinking about AA2153, and there she meets some workers. They are complaining that there is more and more fat in the body due to alcohol consumption and poor diet. After that, we see that the lymphocytes are full. These are cells that have fat, and there they explain to us that eating too many calories and not exercising can cause obesity. After this, the girl hears that the cells are complaining that they have to work very hard. However, the body does not sleep, so they cannot rest. In that, they make a call to the white blood cells that there is a bacteria in the big toe of the left foot. And there, the girl quickly runs away. Later, the leader and the other girls reach the foot, but they are tired because that is the farthest area from the body. Then, they hear an explosion and see a giant bacteria that appears to be very dangerous. At that, the red blood cells get scared and flee from there. Then, we see a cell called memory lymphocyte. This is responsible for detecting bacteria and viruses. There, she comments that the body had never had that type of bacteria. Seeing that they cannot harm it, the person in charge of monitoring the body sends all the cells to attack, and asks them to eliminate it by any means possible. At that, the girls take out weapons and start shooting at him, but they fail to hurt him. Then, AA2153 goes out to the balcony to see what is happening. There, the cell lady is worried about him and asks him to get out of there. However, he does not pay attention to her. After this, he goes out into the street and begins to walk towards the area where the bacteria is. There, a girl approaches and asks about his friend. Afterwards, she tells him that his friend always spoke well of him. And upon hearing this, AA2153 remembers that he died because of him and runs away. Later, we see that AA2153 goes to the spleen. This is an organ that is responsible for eliminating erythrocytes that are old or that cannot work. There, AA2153 asks the person in charge of that place to eliminate him, since he is not working, and for this reason he does not deserve to live. Hearing that, the old man checks the computer and discovers that he is a young red blood cell that has nothing wrong with his body. At that, AA2153 begins to cry. He says his friend trusted him and died because of him. And there the old man yells at him that this place is not for useless people. There the erythrocytes that have worked throughout their lives die. Then he tells him that he can still find meaning in his life. After that, he yells at him to get up and work. In a change of scene, those in charge of monitoring the body discover that the giant bacteria is a crystal of uric acid which has not completely dissolved. This is a substance that is formed when the body breaks down certain foods, and if not removed well, it can cause problems. After this, AA2153 arrives and says that if they do not hurt the body, it will not hear their screams, since it is useless for them to fight if it does not change. And there, the leukocyte girl is surprised to see AA2153 in that state and saying those kinds of things. After that, AA2153 starts hitting him with a pipe. As he does so, he yells at him to stop making them work too hard. He also asks him to stop eating, drinking, and smoking so much. Upon hearing this, the other cells begin to do the same. They ask him to exercise, give them more vitamins, and sleep. There we see that a 2153 seconds tube breaks and he begins to hit with his fists, causing them to open and spurt blood. At this, the leukocyte girl approaches AA2153 and yells at him to stop, and after that, she hugs him. There she tells him that she also feels desperate because of how bad her body is. However, they cannot do anything other than work for all the cells that have lived and died there, in that he says that they should try to leave a better world for the cells that come in the future. She then asks him to stop feeling guilty about his friend's death, and there he takes out his glasses and puts them on. Afterwards, she tells him not to feel bad about what happened, and asks him not to bear it alone. And their AA2153 has a memory of when his friend said those same words to him. After that, he falls to his knees and begins to cry. Then in a scene change, we see the leader of the erythrocytes next to the new boy. They are going to distribute oxygen, and seeing him there, the boy makes us remember AA2153 when he was new, since he puts a lot of effort into his work. However, there are almost no red blood cells, and we can also see that the roads are dirtier and full of grease, so the boy trips and falls. And in that, we see that in a dark hallway, there are many dead erythrocytes. Afterwards, AA2153 is getting dressed to return to work, and there, we see that he has a graduation photo where he appears with his friend. Then, all the erythrocytes will begin their work day. And in that, we hear the leader say that they will only rest when the heart stops. And there they explain to us that the heart is the organ that propels blood to circulate through the body, and it acts like a pump. After that, AA2153 arrives and apologizes to the leader for missing so much time from work. However, he is glad that he has returned. Seeing him, the new guy comes over and says he's happy he's back, and then asks him to teach him more tricks to get better at the job. Later, we see that they go together to carry the oxygen, and there the boy tells him that today he has to distribute in the stomach, so AA2153 remembers that that was where his best friend died. Later, the man in charge of the stomach yells at them to hurry up with the tanks, and there the boy tells him that his name is NC8429, since in the presentation video, the man asks the erythrocytes to tell them his name when they go there to remember him. After this, AA2153 tells him not to do it, since the first time he went to that area, the man told them that he did not have time to learn their names, and that the presentation video was very old. However, the man tells AA2153 that he is glad that he has returned, and after this, he calls it by its name, which is AA2153. Upon hearing that he called him by his name, AA2153 becomes excited, because he does not learn anyone's name, but he did remember his. After this, we see that AA2153 is distributing oxygen to various areas of the body with the same desire as before. There he says that he will do it with all his strength, since that is his job. Then in a scene change, he and the boy are passing through the artery. This is the most important path because it takes blood to the heart. However, the place is dark and full of grease, making it difficult to pass through. In that, they reach a place where the leader and other erythrocytes are. They can't get through because part of the ceiling collapsed, killing several red blood cells. There we see the platelets that are working to fix it. But upon seeing this, AA2153 worries, since this can turn into a thrombus, as happened previously with the ball of erythrocytes. After that, they find another way to move forward. But there another collapse occurs and one of the red blood cells is trapped. In this, the manager explains that when something like this happens, it is because there is a heart attack. This happens when a clot creates in the artery and prevents blood from passing to the heart, causing severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. After that, AA2153 and the boy take the oxygen tanks and run another way because they need to get to the heart as quickly as possible. And there, we see the bosses giving a statement on television announcing that they can no longer do anything for the body. Then, they thank all the cells that have worked hard, since thanks to them they were able to get there. In this, all the workers are scared watching TV. And then, the gentleman announced that the body is going to die today. They explain that this is because the person did not take good care of themselves. He ate fatty foods, consumed alcohol, and was under a lot of stress. Hearing this, the workers get angry and shout that the bosses could have saved them. And there, the gentlemen stand up and apologize. Afterwards, the heart stops and we see that A2153 is desperate, so he runs off to find a solution. After this, the leukocyte girl asks the cells to do their jobs. However, the body begins to stop and the lights go out. And there, the person in charge of monitoring the body says that there is nothing they can do. Then, we see A2153 running while the lights go out behind him. After that, the erythrocytes are surprised to see that the ribs are breaking. Later, AA2153 reaches the chest area, and there all the red blood cells are watching that the heart has a light that turns on and off. There they explain to us that they are giving the body a cardiac massage, which is done when the heart stops. And due to the force applied to the chest during the massage, the ribs can break. Seeing that the body still wants to live, AA2153 goes towards the doors to be prepared when the heart reactivates again. In this, an erythrocyte shouts to AA2153 that the person deserves to die, since that is the only way for them to rest. Then he says that he doesn't understand why he wants to continue working for that body that didn't care about them. And there, he yells at him that he is going to work because he wants to. But at that moment, we see that the heart begins to blink, so he starts shouting encouragement to get his heart going. And after this, all the red blood cells and cells in the body give him encouragement. Then, an electricity runs through the place, and in that, the heart lights up again. There they explain to us that this electricity comes from a device called a defibrillator that is used to shock the heart when it stops, so that it can beat normally. However, the blood cannot pump because the path remains blocked, even though the erythrocytes are working with all their might to try to move the rocks and bring oxygen to the heart. Suddenly, a hose appears that enters and inflates, managing to remove the rocks from the path. After this, the red blood cells rush quickly with oxygen. In that, they explain that they gave the body stent treatment. This is a small metal mesh that is placed in the vein to keep it open so blood can pass through. There, erythrocytes begin to fill the tanks. Then, the head of monitoring says that if the body survives, it will be thanks to their work. After this, we see them bringing oxygen to all the organs. And in that, AA2153 reaches the brain, where the cells are in charge of monitoring if there are any bacteria or viruses. There, the boss tells him that thanks to them the brain did not suffer any damage. Then, the lady with the cells is crying because she thinks they are going to die, and suddenly AA2153 appears with an oxygen tank for her. Upon seeing him, the lady starts to cry because she feels that she was very hard on him all this time. However, he is a good young man. After that, AA2153 is carrying oxygen and watches as the city lights are turning on. This means that the organs are already working again. There he thinks about all the problems, the bad times he had at work, and the times they were in danger, or lost a companion. He then says that, despite all those moments, he feels proud to be a red blood cell, and to help the body function well. And in a change of scene, we see that all the cells are happy and working smoothly. After that, AA2153 says that the body is better than ever since there is no cigarette monoxide, and all the roads are clean, therefore it is easier to distribute oxygen. After that, he is walking and suddenly he gets scared because the leukocyte girl appears killing a bacteria, and this takes him by surprise. Later, we see them together and she tells him not to worry, since that was a common bacteria that is not that dangerous. There, he tells her that now he can work more because his body is stress-free, and the roads are clean. Afterwards, she tells him that he has changed a lot since she started, and is now a professional at his job. Upon hearing this, AA2153 answers that he likes hearing that from someone he admires. There, we see that he blushes and asks her what he admires about her, but in that moment, the new boy arrives needing help from him, so the girl tells AA2153 to go help him. After this, he says that this is the human body, and that its job is to receive oxygen from the lungs to distribute it throughout the body every day. There he comments that the work of each cell may not be much, but together they are what keep this world alive. And in a change of scene, a needle appears from the sky that sucks in AA2153, the girl, and many cells. After that, we see that he is sleeping and the new boy wakes him up. There they see that they are on a road with the floor and walls full of grease. This one even looks dirtier than before. And there, AA2153 and the boy are scared because a bacteria appears. In that, we discover that they are in another body. Before starting, I would like to clarify that the anime that we will see next is a parallel story to Cells at Work, Code Black, which I summarized above. In fact, Code Black is a spin-off of the one we are going to see today. That is why, although both stories are similar, they are not connected. With that said, let's get started. The anime is set inside a human body, where billions of cells work every day. There, we meet the protagonist, who belongs to the red blood cells, also called erythrocytes. They are responsible for transporting oxygen and nutrients through arteries and veins to different parts of the body. But while she is delivering a box with oxygen tanks, the ground opens and blue monsters appear. Seeing this, the cells are terrified, since these monsters are very dangerous. There, they look around and notice that the place has a good climate and a lot of food, so they decide to stay and live. Later, one of them attacks her, but then a boy appears and kills the bacteria by stabbing it with a knife. Then, his companions eliminate the rest. After this, they explain to us that they are white blood cells, also called leukocytes, and its function is to eliminate bacteria and viruses that enter the body. After that, the red blood cells and other cells are shocked to see how they kill the bacteria so violently. There, the protagonist thanks the boy for saving her life. However, he answers that is his job. Following this, she stares at him as he drags away the dead bacteria. And in a scene change, we see that she is distributing the oxygen. But since she is new to that job, she cannot find the organs to which she is going to distribute it. After that, she walks along a path where there is no one and enters through a door. There, a bacteria that was hidden is found, so she gets scared and runs away, but he chases her by throwing his stingers at her. And suddenly, the leukocyte boy comes at full speed. However, the bacteria throws a net at them and escapes while they remain trapped. At that, she thanks him for saving her life again, and he realizes that she is the same girl he saved a few hours ago. After freeing himself from the net, he explains that the blue monsters are called pneumococci, and these are bacteria that can seriously affect if they stay in the human body for a day. Suddenly, an antenna emerges from his cap, which is used to detect where pneumococci are found. In this, she remembers that when she entered the room and discovered the monster, it was looking at a map to reach the lungs, and taking advantage of the fact that she must go to that place, together they head there. After that, on the way they meet a group of girls. There the leukocyte explains that they are platelets, and they are responsible for repairing the veins when they break, so they are very important for healing wounds. After that, the girl and the white blood cell continue walking, and we see that their receptor does not stop ringing. Seeing this, she tells him that it is surely broken. But suddenly, the screens light up and the lymphocyte commander warns that there is a pneumococcus in the veins. And following that, he reassures the cells by saying that he has already sent a team to eliminate them. At that point, the lymphocytes arrive, and the boy comments to her that they are also part of the white blood cells. The difference is that they focus on the lymphatic system. After this, a lymphocyte approaches the girl and is told to be careful since bacteria like to attack erythrocytes. However, the leukocyte tells her not to listen to him since he only wants to scare her. Then, in a scene change, they arrive at their destination, so they must separate. Later, we see that the girl has to deliver oxygen in the blood capillary area, but all the doors are the same. And there, a colleague arrives and shows her with a map where she has to go. Afterwards, the girl advises the protagonist that since she is new at the job, she should learn little by little. At that, she finds the right door, and when she enters, her oxygen box begins to move. After this, the pneumococcus that was hidden comes out of the box. He tells her that she is a fool for transporting him there without realizing it. Then, when the monster is going to attack her, the white blood cell from the ceiling appears. Seeing it, the pneumococcus gets scared and runs away. There, he comments that he knew he had hidden in the box because as soon as he separated from the girl, the receiver stopped ringing. After this, the bacteria runs towards the corridor to attack the erythrocytes that transport nutrients. But the leukocyte chases him and they start to fight. However, he realizes that the bacteria became stronger. At that moment, he makes her chase him to a place to set a trap for him. Upon reaching the site, it activates a mechanism that encapsulates the pneumococcus in a glass sphere. And while the bacteria is screaming at them with rage, they watch the process sitting and drinking a glass of tea. Then, we observe that the pneumococcus is placed in a rocket and expelled through sneezing. After that, the girl asks the leukocyte if they will see each other again. But he answers that there are many white and red blood cells, so it will be difficult for them to meet again. And in a change of scene, we see all the cells working in the human body. There they explain that they work all year round without rest. After this, we see the protagonist going to deliver a basket of food. However, she doesn't know where to go. At that point, her partner realizes that she can't find the place, so she comes over to help her. And upon seeing the map, she tells her that she is also heading in that direction, and she decides to accompany her. At that moment, the platelets come walking, and they think it's cute that the girls have a hard time going down the steps. After that, the protagonist is happy that all the cells are friendly to platelets, and she thinks that for some time now there has been peace among all the workers. Afterwards, they walk along a raised path. There, the companion tells her that she must be careful, since they are walking through a vein very close to the skin. Therefore, any impact from outside is felt very strongly in that place. And at that moment, a huge explosion occurs, leaving a giant hole in the city. After this, the red blood cells begin to be absorbed, and they fly away. Suddenly, the leukocyte boy appears and holds her by the arm. There he tells her how lucky he is to meet her again. After that, they are inside a building and the leukocyte explains that there was a big impact from outside that broke the vein. Because of this, the erythrocytes are drawn towards the hole. Then, he mentions that the name of that wound is scratch or scratch, and says that if someone falls there they will die. Suddenly, some bacteria arrive and begin to attack them. But in that case, the leukocyte tells the protagonist and the companion to flee. And after this, we see them running down the hallway, while they tell the other cells that there was a huge wound through which bacteria are entering. After that, the monsters get there and the hallway doors close. There, they explain to us that this happens because the circulatory system blocks the veins so that infections and bacteria do not pass to the rest of the body. In that we see many red blood cells, desperate without being able to do anything. Upon arrival, the bacteria see the erythrocytes helpless, trying to escape, but just at that moment more white blood cells appear and kill the bacteria. Then, they signal the direction of the scratch to the leukocytes, so they run there. In a scene change, we see the boy fighting, but when he is about to die he draws strength and kills the bacteria. After that, he receives a call from someone who is in the area of the hole asking for reinforcements, so he quickly runs to the place. When he arrives at the site he kills a bacteria, and the boy who asked for help thanks him for saving his life. In this case, more bacteria appear and more white blood cells also arrive. Seeing the leukocytes, one of them mocks because they save the other cells, but no one saves them. The bacteria then tells them that it thoroughly studied the body system. And there he comments that when the bacteria enter, the first ones that come out to defend are the neutrophils, which are useless. Later, macrophages and monocytes appear. These are powerful but take time to act. And finally comes the army of lymphocytes. After saying this, the bacteria says that if it wants to destroy the white blood cells, it must first kill the neutrophils, and then it begins to attack them. In this, they try to defend themselves with their knives, while the bacteria attacks them with its stinger. Then, we see that the leukocyte boy is very exhausted and on the edge of the hole. And there, the bacteria is surprised because despite being tired, the boy gains strength and stops the attack. After this, he tells her that he forgot to mention the most important helpers when it comes to fighting bacteria, platelets. Suddenly, the girls arrive and begin to coordinate to cover the wound with a net they use called fibrin. Later, they manage to cover the entire scratch, so the wound will begin to heal. At that moment, the bacteria become scared because no more reinforcements can enter from the outside. And upon seeing this, the white blood cells become excited, since now they only have to annihilate those inside. After that, the leukocyte boy jumps and eliminates her with a knife. Then, it falls into the fibrin network. Afterwards, the protagonist goes down there worried about the boy. However, he is in good condition. Then she thanks him again for everything the white blood cells do. There, the protagonist tells him that they fight bacteria, and platelets close wounds. On the other hand, the erythrocytes only have to flee. For that reason, she wants to thank him as many times as necessary. And at that moment, the leukocyte responds that it is also useful for the functioning of the body. Suddenly, they realize that they are stuck to the network, and there, the platelets trap all the cells in the fibrin. The girl then explains that they will be there until the blood clot is removed and the wound turns into a scab. In a change of scene, we see a very scared child who is walking through dark streets, illuminated only by his flashlight. Suddenly, a cell turned into a zombie appears and the boy becomes even more scared. But when he turns to run, more zombies appear and surround him. Just then, the leukocyte boy arrives and kills them easily. There, he asks the child what he is doing in that place alone, to which he responds that he is a Th0 lymphocyte, which is the lowest range of T lymphocytes. In that, the leukocyte comments that the cells turned into zombies were infected by someone, since these used to be ordinary cells. At that moment, more of them appear and the leukocyte realizes that they are infected by the flu virus. There they explain to us that the flu virus causes a fever of more than 38 degrees and also causes headache, muscle and joint pain. At that, he tells the boy that they must kill them before they convert to more cells. However, when he turns around, the boy is on the ground terrified. He tells him that he is going to stay there so as not to get in the way, but the leukocyte needs help, since there are many zombies. After this, a macrophage girl appears armed with a machete. As soon as they see her, the zombies rush towards her to bite her, but she easily eliminates them with a single attack. After that, she calls the superiors to alert them that there is a flu virus in the body, and thus send reinforcements to that area. There, the boy asks the leukocyte and the macrophage to say that he killed at least one zombie. And with that, the T lymphocytes arrive and tell the girl and the white blood cell that they did a good job. But at that moment, they see that the boy is crawling to escape from there without being seen. After this, the older lymphocytes begin to shout at him because they know that the child once again depended on others to eliminate the viruses. Then, they tell him that there are still many zombies and this time he must kill even one. Later, we see the lymphocytes, leukocytes, and the macrophage fighting. And there, they encourage the child to fight, but he is very afraid. After this, a zombie attacks him, but since he doesn't defend himself, a teammate has to come and save him. Afterwards, the child cries out of shame and fear and runs away. And in a change of scene, the protagonist and her friend are on their way to distribute some boxes of oxygen. But in that, they see that the cells are running. There, a boy tells them that there is a virus infection that is attacking the body. Then, in a scene change, we see the boy crying as he runs. At that, he trips and falls. There, a boy in a green suit approaches, which is a dendritic cell. These cells are responsible for detecting infections and viruses in the body, and then inform the rest of the immune cells. There, the boy asks him if something is wrong, and at that, he bursts into tears because he fled from the combat like a coward. The child feels helpless because he is very weak and cannot be brave like his fellow T lymphocytes, the leukocyte or the macrophage girl. After that, the boy in green shows him an album of old photos. When he sees it, he is surprised because in the photos are all his classmates who are strong now when they were young. And we see that they all look like him, crying and wounded returning from a fight. In that, the boy releases more albums so that the child realizes that no one is born learned and that he still has time to be better. And in a change of scene, we see that the T cells get the creeps because they feel that someone is seeing their past. After that, the boy tells the boy not to be afraid, since he is not alone. Upon hearing this, the boy steels himself and we see that a flash comes out of his body. At that, the boy in green comments that the boy has finally become a T cell. Then, we return to battle and the leukocytes and T lymphocytes are tired of fighting the flu virus. This is because zombies multiply more and more by turning good cells into zombies. In a scene change, the protagonist and her friend begin to feel very hot because their body temperature is increasing due to the flu. And there, in the hallway, zombies appear to attack erythrocytes. After that, we return to the battle and see that they cannot continue fighting, since the viruses do not stop increasing and they are very tired. There, a zombie prepares to attack, but is hit by a fist that goes through a wall. At that moment, we see that the fist belongs to the Th0 lymphocyte boy, who has transformed into a muscular man. After this, he apologizes to his companions for having been such a coward the previous time. There, they explain that Th0 lymphocytes become T lymphocytes when they are activated. When they see the child, everyone is surprised by his transformation, since he seems to be another person. At that point, he explains that it not only activated, but also split. Then, many lymphocytes like it appear. They're his companions who previously shouted at him to fight are now happy to see his transformations. But then, another boy appears, which is a B lymphocyte. These are cells that create antibodies and fire them, eliminating the bacteria. However, no one pays attention to him because everyone is admiring the strong lymphocyte. After this, they feel motivated to fight harder and begin to kill the zombies. Then in a scene change, we see that the other systems are working to eliminate the virus. In the area of the lungs, rockets are coming out that expel the virus outward through sneezing. Like the area in charge of producing nutrients that stops food production to use that energy in other systems. They show us that the sweat glands see that the body has a high temperature, but they do not worry, since the body has enough water reserves and they order it to be refreshed through sweat. Then, they tell us that thanks to the teamwork of the cells, in a week the virus has completely disappeared. However, while they are celebrating, a zombie they had not seen appears. And there, we see that the T lymphocyte is very confident and says that it is going to eliminate it in one fell swoop so that it suffers. But when he runs towards the zombie, it hits him with a blow that knocks him away, and he falls to the ground. After this, the B lymphocyte shoots antibodies, but they don't do anything either. Seeing that, the white blood cell boy comments that if he has not died with those attacks it is because it isn't a virus. There they explain that influenza is a very resistant type of influenza, responsible for many epidemics in the world. Then we see the zombies start to mutate and get bigger. After this, it begins to release spores that stick to the heads of the cells, turning them into zombies. In that, the macrophage girl informs the dendritic cell what is happening. There we see that the transformed lymphocyte returns to its original form and becomes a child again. Seeing how strong that virus is, the B cell flees from there and says it must create a new antibody. After this, the army of lymphocytes and white blood cells are very tired, so the zombies jump on top of them to beat them. Then, in a scene change, the protagonist and the leukocyte boy are in the stomach area, and she is amazed to see the gastric juices. There, the leukocyte says that these are responsible for breaking down the food we consume through an enzyme called pepsin. But in that moment, he receives a call telling him that there is a danger, and before leaving he tells the protagonist that they will see each other later. After this, he arrives at the place where the problem is and discovers that there is a bacteria fighting against a girl who is defending the erythrocytes. There, the monster says that it only wants the nutrients that the red blood cells distribute. However, the girl answers that she is not going to allow him to take the food that they have produced with so much effort. But we see that she does not have enough strength to defeat the bacteria. There, the monster is going to kill her with a whirlwind attack, but just at that moment the leukocyte arrives and defeats it with its knife. After this, the protagonist appears and goes to help him, but he tells her that he can get up by himself. However, he quickly apologizes and thanks her. There they explain that she is an eosinophil. These are a type of leukocytes that, although they are brave, are weaker than the rest. Then, he tells the girl that they have time to see each other. Seeing this, the protagonist asks him if they know each other, to which he responds that they grew up in the same brain. In that, we see that the girl is embarrassed because everyone is making fun of her for being so weak. There, we hear the cells murmuring that, even though she has a weapon, it is of no use to her. Hearing those comments, the leukocyte boy feels sorry for her. And to defend her, he says that eliminating bacteria is not her only job, since she has other functions. But while he's talking, she interrupts him to say that the mocking cells are right, since it is very weak. At that moment, they feel a strong tremor coming from the stomach, so the leukocyte, the girl, and the protagonist run there. After this, we see the person in charge of these situations activating the mechanisms. In this case, a liquid is spread from the cooling pipes that helps calm the tremors. Then, a hooded man appears, who is a basophile. These cells are a type of leukocyte that are very rare in the human body and produce an allergic reaction when they encounter bacteria. Afterwards, the girl comments that there must be so many bacteria that the gastric juices in the stomach are not able to eliminate them. There the wall breaks and a giant monster appears, and at that moment, they report over the loudspeakers that there is food poisoning, so they must flee from there. In this, they explain that this is a bacteria that lives in salt water. Therefore, eating shellfish infected with this bacteria causes severe stomach pain. After that, the lymphocyte commander warns that they are being invaded by bacteria from a colony resident in the raw fish. For this reason, all cells should be removed as soon as possible. Afterwards, the leukocyte and the girl will fight against the giant bacteria and the smaller ones, and while he is eliminating the little ones, she can't even kill one. In this, we see that there is an erythrocyte in danger, so the girl goes to help him. However, the leukocyte tells her not to do it because she is not strong enough. And when the bacteria is going to attack the girl, he steps in and takes the strong blow instead. Seeing this, she runs towards the bacteria, even though he yells at her that she can't defeat it. There she is going to distract her so that he can attack her. And with that, the bacteria swallows it, so the girl is paralyzed with fear and guilt. There, the man in the hood arrives and says that the leukocyte was sacrificed for a good cause. However, the boy comes out of the monster's mouth and pierces the bacteria inside. After this, he asks if everyone is okay, and the protagonist arrives, who is surprised to see him covered in blood. But in that, a fellow neutrophil washes him with a hose, so he returns to his original color. There, the girl falls to her knees and says she's sorry for acting without thinking. Afterwards, she comments that if her physical strength were equal to her bravery, she could eliminate the bacteria with ease. And at that, we hear again that the other cells are murmuring and wondering what eosinophils exist for. Seeing this, the boy apologizes for telling her that she couldn't do it. However, she replies that she knows she is weak and that is why the others make fun of her. Then, she thanks him again for protecting her. And there we heard the speakers giving the news that the bacteria was successfully eliminated. In this case, the erythrocytes return to their job of distributing oxygen and nutrients. And before leaving, he and the protagonist observe that the eosinophilic girl is sad while cleaning her gun. But at that moment, they feel a much stronger tremor than the previous one, and they run to the place. Upon arrival, they realize that the stomach wall has ruptured and gastric juices are now leaking out. At that, a creature appears that is larger than the previous bacteria. There they explain that its name is Anisaki's parasite, and it affects marine animals. And if a human eats a raw fish, the parasite infiltrates the stomach causing severe pain and vomiting. Then the cells are worried because the gastric juices are rising. After this, we see that the body has exceeded its limits and is about to vomit. In a scene change, the parasite is breaking through the walls of the stomach and everyone is terrified. And there, the cells tell the leukocyte to do something, but it answers that it cannot do anything because it is impossible. At this, the eosinophilic girl appears who is determined to kill the bacteria. So she starts walking towards the monster. But at that moment, the cells feel ashamed when they realize that they were very hard on her. There they tell her not to do it, because even though she is a weak person, she should not sacrifice herself in that way. But she tells them that that is her job. And after this, jump towards the parasite. And there, we see that the protagonist wants to do something to help her, but the leukocyte grabs her so she doesn't get close. Then, he tells her that he knows that she is not going with the intention of dying and encourages her, because he trusts that she is the only one who can defeat it. And while the girl goes to attack the monster, she mentions that her real job is to eliminate the parasites. Saying this, he thrusts the spear behind his head. There they explain that the job of eosinophils is to defend us when a parasite enters the body. After that, we see how the monster dies by falling into the gastric juices. At that moment, all the cells begin to praise and applaud her for what she has just done. Even those who had made fun of her for being weak come to apologize. At that, she feels a little embarrassed by all the applause and praise she is receiving. However, after a moment, she relaxes and enjoys the celebration as the cells throw her upward in victory. Then, in a scene change, the body is on red alert because some meteorites are about to fall. There, the workers ask the lymphocyte commander what they should do in that case. But he knows that there is nothing they can do about it. In that, they explain to us that the meteorite is a load of pollen, which causes an allergic reaction from a tree called Japanese cedar. This pollen travels long distances through the air, but when it occurs the most it is in the month of February and March. After this, we see that they impact the sea of the membrane and there the rocks open, discovering the pollen allergens inside. There they tell us that allergies are exaggerated reactions to certain substances. Then, in a scene change, the protagonist hears through the loudspeaker that the superiors are warning that there are enemies close to the ocular membrane. At that, she continues working, and while she is looking at her map, behind her, we see an allergen infiltrating. Seeing it, the protagonist gets scared and it increases in size and then walks towards her. Suddenly, the leukocyte appears and stabs it with his knife, causing the allergen to fall to the ground. Afterwards, she asks him what that was and he says he'll know after he eats it. And there, she feels a mixture of fear and disgust when she sees the boy doing that. There, they explain to us that all leukocytes break down bacteria and viruses by eating them. At that, he discovers by the taste that it is a cedar pollen allergen. Then, he mentions that this is the time in which they appear. And furthermore, he comments that despite being large, they do not cause diseases, unlike viruses and bacteria. But in the same way, they cause problems in the body, so they must be eliminated. After this, a memory cell appears, and he is scared by the allergen leaks. There, he says that there is a legend that says that allergies can be passed from generation to generation through the body and cause many natural disasters. At that, another creature appears and they warn through the speakers again that many of them have already entered the human body. And there, the voice suggests that if they can flee, they should do so. After this, we see that the lymphocyte commander asks that the B lymphocyte be sent to work. After this, the boy we saw previously comes out, who is responsible for producing antibodies. These are weapons to confront bacteria and viruses. There, the boy removes the pollen and all the cells celebrate. In this, the memory cell explains to the leukocyte that it is not good to use too many antibodies. Afterwards, he goes to tell the boy not to use his weapons so much, but he feels very confident and tells him not to worry because everything is under control. Later, a pipe comes down from the ceiling and releases a liquid called histamine. Seeing this, the boy comments that the liquid serves to cause inflammation and expel the pollen. However, the pipe goes down and then withdraws, so all the cells are confused. Then it appears again and releases a large amount of histamine, which is a yellow liquid. And then the entire room floods. After the liquid has drained, we see that more allergens arrived. And there, the one in charge of expelling the histamine releases another discharge, and everything floods again. After this, several commanders from different parts of the force send to ask the woman not to fire another volley, because these greatly affect their workplaces. However, she must do it, as this is necessary for the allergens to leave. And there we see that sneeze rockets are coming out in the sky. In that, they explain that histamine produces sneezing that helps get rid of the pollen allergy. Then, in the nose area there are collapses. This is because the veins there swell, which causes the nose to become blocked. There, we see that histamine also causes redness and itching in the eyes, and for this reason more tears than normal are produced. After this, there is a flood of tears, and the cells in the eye area are flooded. Later, we see that the body is a mess and the memory cell confirms that the legend was true. In this, they explain that pollen allergy affects various parts of the body, causing sneezing, runny nose, nasal congestion, and itchy eyes. Then, in a change of scene, the cells begin to reproach the B cell for using too many antibodies. But in that, the boy defends himself by saying that it was not his fault, and that the culprit was the person in charge of the histamine. Upon hearing this, they enter the office of the cell called the mast cell, which is in charge of making the downloads, and they complain to him for what he did. Then they take him outside and she starts arguing with the B cell to see who was the culprit. But he defends himself by saying that he followed the manual to know what to do in that case, and he answers that he only knows how to read the manual, and after that they fight hard. While they are fighting, the leukocyte is reflecting that everyone worked hard but couldn't do anything to help. Suddenly, the protagonist appears pushing a sphere and crushes the leukocyte in the memory cell. Seeing what she did, she apologizes. However, she is in a hurry and says she must deliver it there. In that, we see that the sphere has written that it is for medicinal use, and from there a robot voice is heard saying that it has reached the objective. After this, it opens and sure enough, a robot appears from inside. Upon leaving, it shoots a laser beam at the cells and then shoots at the buildings to destroy them. And in that, the cells start to cry because the robot is destroying their houses. There, everyone is confused because they don't understand what's happening to him and why he's attacking them. In this, the memory cell discovers that this robot is a steroid. And there they explain to us that the steroid is a medicine that is responsible for reducing inflammation in the area. In addition, it stops allergic reactions and symptoms caused by histamine. However, to do all this, it must first remove some cells. The steroid then fires missiles to destroy the place. After this, the cells apologize to the girl in charge of histamine and to the B lymphocyte for having blamed them for what was happening. After fulfilling its function, the robot turns off, and the allergic reaction decreases. At that, the leukocyte comments that he will never forget that day. And there, everyone once again has peace within the body. And in a change of scene, the protagonist is going to deliver oxygen, but on the way she gets lost again. There, she says that the body is very complicated. Later, it reaches the red bone marrow, and there they explain to us that blood cells are born in that place. In that, we see that a macrophage teacher is graduating a group of children into adult red blood cells. And there, the teacher tears a ball out of their cap, which means they can now work. After this, the protagonist feels nostalgic when she sees the children and remembers when she spent her childhood in that place. In memory, we see how cells are born and where they are located depending on what type of cells they are. After this, the protagonist has a memory of when she was a child and they were teaching her about the work they will do when they grow up. There, they show them the paths they must follow and also teach them how to distribute oxygen. In that, we understand why the protagonist never finds her way, since she was little she got lost while doing that activity. In the memory, the protagonist begins to cry, but the macrophage teacher, to console her, tells her that when she grows up she will not be lost. Later, the teacher and a white blood cell go to teach the children how to escape from a bacteria. However, the protagonist is afraid of getting lost again. But there, her friend reassures her that if it happens again they will be together. After this, the training begins where they must flee while the leukocyte chases them pretending to be a bacteria. Later, we see that she goes down a wrong path. There, the girl gets sad and says that this way she won't be able to become an erythrocyte. But in that, she observes some red blood cells working and thinks that when she grows up she wants to be like them. At that moment a bacteria appears, but she thinks it is the master leukocyte in a disguise. There, the bacteria tells her that it is real and begins to chase her, so we see the protagonist fleeing with great fear. Then, he catches her and tells her that his greatest pleasure is torturing incompetent cells like her, and there he begins to shake it from side to side with his tentacles. Then, he tells her that he has played with her enough and now he is going to kill her. But in that moment, the protagonist thinks about the red blood cells she saw a moment ago and gets angry because she wants to be the same as them one day. After this, she throws the cap at the monster and hits it in the eye, and then runs away. And while she is running away, he says that he has to become a cool red blood cell when she grows up. However, the monster throws a tentacle at her and she falls to the ground. But suddenly, the leukocyte boy appears to defend her, and when the boy tries to stab him with the knife, it doesn't hurt him at all because the weapon is made of rubber. The bacteria then picks him up and starts hitting him, saying how much he enjoys torturing him. After that, the boy gets up wounded and says that his job is to defend the cells. At that moment, the master white blood cell arrives and pierces the bacteria with its knife. Also, the macrophage appears and tells them that she was worried about them. Seeing that they are safe, the children start crying. After that, the teacher takes the leukocyte, but before leaving, the protagonist thanks him for saving her, and then she asks if they will see each other again, To which the boy responds that when they grow up and both walk through the veins, they will see each other again. There, the protagonist with tears in her eyes says goodbye to him. In a scene change, we return to the present and she thinks that she was so busy with the new job that she had forgotten about that moment. Suddenly, the leukocyte boy appears and the protagonist, while pushing the oxygen cart, steps on his foot, spilling the tea he had been drinking. After that, she gives him another glass of tea and he tells her that since he has some free time, he decides to accompany her. Upon hearing this, the protagonist becomes excited and thanks him. Then, we see that she is thinking about telling the leukocyte if he remembers the time they had together as children. However, in the end he decides not to tell her anything. There, the protagonist thinks that this must be the biggest coincidence, because he saved her when she was little and he also does it now that she is older. After this, they arrive at their destination and the protagonist says goodbye and leaves to continue working. In that, the leukocyte thinks that everything has been very calm lately. Suddenly, an infected cell appears and starts chasing a boy. Seeing this, he goes there and stabs her with the knife. Then, a lymphocyte arrives and tells him that he will take care of the corpse. But at that moment, a girl falls from above onto the lymphocyte's back. There they explain to us that it is an NK cell. These are responsible for attacking cells infected with a virus or cancer. At that, the girl looks at the dead cell and says that there must be many more in the body. Upon hearing this, the boy who was going to be attacked comments that there are more like them near his house. There, she grabs him and asks him to take her to the place. It then tells the lymphocyte and leukocyte not to follow them. At that moment, the lymphocyte is going to approach her and she hits him on the nose. After this, he collects water from a stream and throws it on her. And there, they begin to fight hard to see who is going to go with the boy to look for the infected cells. In that, the leukocyte tells the boy that he does not have to teach him all the way, since he understands that the people he is going to kill were at some point his friends and neighbors. However, the boy tells him not to worry and that he wants to guide him to the end, because he saved his life. Then, in a scene change, they arrive at the place where the cells live, but everything is empty. At that point, the woman grabs the boy and goes with him to look for the infected cells, while the leukocyte and lymphocyte stay there. Once alone, the NK cell tells the boy to show himself as he really is. At that moment, his innocent face changes and he tells the girl that he has discovered it. And in a change of scene, we see that the protagonist is walking with her friend and at that moment her shoe unties. Seeing this, the friend tells her that this is bad luck. Afterwards, she passes under a ladder, which is also considered an act of bad luck. To complete the series of bad events, a cell appears carrying some plates and the protagonist trips over it, causing the plates to break when they fall to the ground. There, the friend becomes upset when she sees all these bad omens. After that, the protagonist mentions that she has a feeling that something bad is going to happen. After that, we return to the scene between the NK cell and the boy. There, she tells him that surely his plan was to take them there posing as an innocent cell to kill them without anyone noticing. At that, he replies that if the other two cells had come, he would have been able to eliminate all three together and thus save him work. And at that moment, his hair turns white and deformed arms grow from various parts of his body that change shape. Also, his face turns evil. There they explain that this is a cancer cell. These occur when there is a genetic abnormality, and they multiply without separating from healthy cells. At that moment, he covers her with his large hands, but she easily frees herself by cutting his fingers into pieces. And there, she tells him that was a very weak attack. After this, he tries another attack that does hurt her, knocking her against the wall. Then, in a change of scene, there is the leukocyte and the lymphocyte walking down a dark hallway inside the building. And in that, it seems to him that something strange is happening. There, he says that they must meet the NK cell again. But at that moment they find a laboratory that was hidden. When they see the papers stuck on the walls, they realize that they used that place to multiply cells and turn them into cancer cells. And at that moment, a large group of these zombie-like cells appear and start attacking them. But they eliminate them one by one. The lymphocyte kills them with his fists and the leukocyte with his knife. After this, they go out into a hallway and there they discover that there are more of them, but they are all fused, forming a massive cancer that does not allow them to move. And there, we see that they can't do anything about that. But suddenly, the NK cell appears falling from above and breaking through the ceiling. At that moment, they are surprised to see that she is very injured, despite being one of the strongest cells. After this, the lymphocyte begins to argue with her because she had the idea of separating, and it ended up that way. And there, she answers that she did it because she is the only one who can distinguish between a cancer cell and a normal one. There, the cancer cell appears and tells them that it can finally fight all three at the same time. In that, the leukocyte and the lymphocyte think that the boy deceived them all this time by pretending to be an innocent cell. It then collapses the entire building on top of them. And there, among the rubble, the girl says that that's why she wanted to take care of it herself, since the cancer cell kills the good guys. Then, in a change of scene, the protagonist and the friend see many erythrocytes passing by, carrying large amounts of nutrients. There, she asks a boy why they carry so much food. However, the boy does not understand the reason for this and also finds it strange to bring so much food to the apartments across the street. After this, they look out of one of the windows and discover the cancer cells eating, and they look like zombies. So the red blood cells run away scared. Despite this, erythrocytes continue to leave a lot of food outside the apartments. And there we see that the protagonist continues with a strong suspicion that something bad is happening. In a scene change, the leukocyte tries to rise from the rubble, but the cancer won't let him and crushes him with its shape-shifting arms. And in that, the cell has a memory of when it was a child and the lymphocytes were chasing it to kill it. He remembers when he was with his friend and while fleeing, he fell and a lymphocyte killed him. After this, we return to the present and he lifts the lymphocyte. There he remembers what they did to his friend and shouts at him, asking him why they see him as a waste and want to kill him if he didn't do anything wrong. He was just born. After saying this, he crushes them again. Then, he tells them that his plan is to multiply into many cells and be as big as possible. And there, the leukocyte responds that, even if it achieves its objective, in the end they will die just like them. At that, he grows some wings and says that he doesn't care since his destiny was always to die. But as he says this, they pierce his wing with a machete. And when he turns around, he sees all the cells, from macrophages to red blood cells, coming at him to kill him. They got there thanks to the protagonist, who warned them that something strange was happening. Then they all run off to fight the cancer cells. After this, we see that the lymphocyte makes peace with the NK cell and tells it that they have to defeat it together. And there they join the others and begin to kill them while they enjoy working as a team. But in that, the NK cell plays a trick on it, causing the B lymphocyte to shower it with its antibody weapon. However, after laughing, she becomes serious and begins to cut through the cancer cells, killing them with her sword. Following that, he reaches where the leader is and breaks him in half, and there she leaves him so that the leukocyte can finish killing him. But when he puts the knife to his neck, he feels compassion. There he tells him that he is a cell equal to everyone and deserves to have the opportunity to say his last words before dying. In that, the boy confesses to the leukocyte that when he pretended to be a normal cell, and he saved him, he really felt good. And he was happy because it was the first time someone did something good for him. However, the leukocyte regrets that it cannot heal him or let him live, since that cell is going to multiply. It is going to damage other cells and consume nutrients. There, the cell cries as it accepts its fate and wonders why it came to this world if it was always a mistake. After this, it prepares to die and the leukocyte must eliminate it in order to do its job. And at that moment, the cancer cell dies. After that, the protagonist arrives while he is being disinfected, and she is shocked to see the dead cell. But in that, the leukocyte remembers that before dying he said that he would accept losing this time, which means it may appear again in the future. After this, he recognizes that the protagonist warned all the cells that something bad was happening. And after this, now he is the one who thanks her for saving his life. In a change of scene, the protagonist goes through a vein on her way to distribute oxygen. But suddenly, a spiked bacteria appears in the body. There, it threatens to stab her, but at that moment, the leukocyte arrives and eliminates it. After this, he asks her what she is doing, and she tells him that she took a wrong path. After the confrontation, she realizes that leukocyte hurt his arm defending her and is bleeding. Seeing this, the protagonist feels guilty and thinks she should be more responsible. At that moment, he offers to help her look for the place, but she doesn't want to bother him again and concentrates on looking at the map. So he decides to let her do it herself. However, we see that she opens the wrong door and almost falls into the void. After he helps her, she kneels and apologizes to him for always having to save her. Later, we see that the protagonist is walking alone and the leukocyte is watching her so that she does not get lost. But in that, she watches as she constantly takes the wrong path, and the other cells make fun of her. Later, she walks through the vena cava, which is located in the heart. There she discovers that she cannot get lost because this path goes in only one direction. However, it is uphill and difficult for her. After this, he says that he has to take the opportunity to overtake everyone quickly in case the road gets complicated. But in that, she meets her friend, and she asks her if she wants her to accompany her. Upon hearing this, the protagonist gets angry because she feels that she is a hindrance to other people because she cannot find the paths herself. Later, she reaches the heart area and sees a video on a screen that shows them the path they must follow to deliver the oxygen. However, the instructions are very complicated and not even the other erythrocytes understood the orders. Despite the difficulties, she manages to reach the right place. There, it is explained that this organ is made of muscle and acts as a pump to send blood to the rest of the body. Then, it reaches a place in the vein where all the red blood cells are packed together, and at that moment, she loses his notebook. There, the leukocyte boy who continues to follow her throws it at her, but she doesn't know who did it. By doing this, he hides so that she doesn't notice that he is watching her and making sure everything goes well for her. Later, we see that she loses her hat, however. He is behind her and picks it up for her. Afterwards, he climbs onto the roof and puts up a direction sign so she doesn't get lost. After this, she takes a moment to relax while enjoying tea and watching the oxygen tanks fill. And there she remembers that that place was where the leukocyte boy saved her for the first time. Later, she is walking and a bacteria appears, and he quickly goes and eliminates it. After that, we see several scenes where she is touring different areas while the leukocyte continues to watch her. Later, there are two bacteria that plan to attack the protagonist. However, he arrives where they are and tells them to be quiet. After this, he kills them but immediately catches them to prevent them from making a noise when they fall to the ground. And there, he thinks that she almost discovered him. Later, we see the protagonist going through several difficulties along the way, but managing to go through them successfully. In that, she is proud of all the obstacles she has overcome and wants to reach the end on her own. Then, it passes through a very narrow path and delivers the oxygen to a cell, which thanks it for having gotten into that difficult place. When she leaves there, the protagonist is happy and proud for having managed to reach the end without getting lost at any point. And while she is celebrating her achievement, the leukocyte is watching her from afar. At that moment, the lymphocyte arrives and observes the happy girl. And upon seeing her, he comments to the leukocyte that she is useless. There, the white blood cell responds that it only has a hard time finding the way, and that despite asking for help at times, she always seeks to learn and improve. But the best thing about her is that she never gives up. In that, we see that the protagonist is approached by her friend and other colleagues to congratulate them for what she did. After this, the leukocyte tells that it has realized that the red blood cells work very hard, because they must carry heavy boxes around their bodies, several times a day. Then he tells that the work of erythrocytes should be an example of binding for white blood cells. But suddenly, she punches him in the face and yells at him that they don't belong to that type of cell. On the other hand, white blood cells must kill bacteria daily and cannot be as friendly. Later, the protagonist goes excitedly to tell the leukocyte boy that she alone did the work by herself. But when she sees his face, she gets upset. However, he lies to her and tells her that a bacteria caused the wound in a fight. Then he asks her how work went. After this, we see that they are sitting and she, excited, tells him everything she did during the day. After that, the lymphocyte that hit the boy walks while listening to the other cells laughing and having fun with each other. And there we notice that he feels envious because he has no friends to talk to. Then in a scene change, he has the newer lymphocytes do a lot of physical training. In addition, nearby cells can hear the screams with which he scolds them. Upon hearing this, the lymphocyte commander says that he better close the windows so as not to hear the noises outside. There, we are introduced to a woman who is a regulatory lymphocyte. And as its name indicates, it is responsible for regulating the other lymphocytes so that they do not have any errors. But at that moment, the leader lymphocyte throws a rookie and he goes through the window, falling on top of the commander. After this, they all come running and the lymphocyte apologizes for having thrown the boy too hard. At that, the angry commander tells him to be careful, but he replies that he is just doing his job. There, the rookies watch as the two argue, and they are surprised to see that the leader yells at his commander like that. Then, the dendritic cell appears and shows the boys a photo album in which the two of them are seen fighting when they were young. Upon seeing this, we discovered that since they were children they spent their time fighting, although the commander was stronger. There, we see a memory of when they were in military school, and the teacher trained them hard to become T lymphocytes. In that place they were put to do many exercises, but the commander always won the duels against the leader. On one occasion, he steps on his head during an activity, and when the leader tries to attack him, the commander blocks the attack and hits him with his fingers, leaving his forehead red. There, the teachers realize that the boy with glasses is much stronger than the rest. Later in the memory, the two children have to share a room, but the commander is the one who makes the decisions about where they will sleep. The next day they have another very strong training session and the leader loses again. However, he does not give up. Later, while everyone is asleep, the commander gets up to train, But when he goes outside, he discovers the leader who has been there for a long time learning to fight. Seeing him, he is surprised that despite the previous day's effort, he still has energy to do another workout. After this, the commander begins training. And there, on a balcony, is the regulatory lymphocyte watching them while the dendritic cell takes photos of them. Then, in a change of scene, we realize that several years have passed in military school, and finally the big day arrives, where the boys must overcome some obstacles to become T lymphocytes. At that, the teacher tells them that those who fail to pass the test will be eliminated. There, the activity begins, which consists of distinguishing between infected cells and healthy ones. Suddenly, we see that the ground opens and those who make mistakes fall into the void. After this, the commander manages to pass his test successfully. Then, before it is the leader's turn, the commander gives him some advice and tells him not to close his eyes when hitting, since the test is about taking a good look at the opponent. After telling him this, he leaves. There, the leader is surprised that he had such a good gesture towards him. After that, in the test, he goes to hit a figure that seemed to be a bacteria, but before doing so he remembers the advice and opens his eyes. At that moment, the leader realizes that if the commander had not told him that, he would be eliminated right then and there. After this, another figure appears behind him that he has to shoot down, but because of the fog he cannot see it. There, the lymphocytes in the audience shout at him where he should hit. However, each one shouts something different, making the leader more confused. Seeing that, the commander yells at him to use his secret technique, which he practiced every morning during his training. There, break the figure, however, he doesn't know how he knew his secret technique. Later, the two are sitting on the riverbank and the commander tells the leader to be glad that he passed the test. However, the leader is sad because he feels that he did it by luck and because they helped him. Furthermore, he does not believe he can become a good T cell. After that, he confesses that he is envious of the commander because he has already managed to be offered different jobs when he finishes the internship. Hearing this, the commander tells him that if he doesn't trust himself, he should resign. Then he comments that the world won't stand for his stupid feelings. There, he gets angry and hits him, but he hits him back and the leader falls to the ground. After that, he advises him that his strongest point is to make an effort, and that is the only thing he should do, since the leader has proven to train more than the rest, because since he was a child he got up early to train alone. After this, the commander extends his hand to him and he shakes it. The motivated leader then says that he will work harder to overcome his enemies so that he can defeat them in one blow. Hearing this, the commander feels proud. And there we discovered that that was the reason why he became a commander, to help and direct stubborn lymphocytes as the leader. At that, he responds that if he wants to be a commander he must be more relaxed and calm, or else he will scare the rookies. There, we see that behind a tree are the regulatory lymphocyte and the dendritic cell. At that moment, we realize that that was when the photo of them hitting each other was taken, the same one he is now showing to the rookies. After this, we return to the present and they stop arguing and come over to see what the cell is showing the boys. And when they see that it is their photo, they both turn red with shame and try to grab it to burn it. However, the dendritic cell does not get caught and says that these are important documents that he must save. And there, the regulatory lymphocyte thinks that these two will never change. Then, in a change of scene, we see that the protagonist continues to distribute oxygen to where the cells live. There, the boy thanks her for always bringing oxygen tanks to that narrow place. Seeing the boy's kindness, she responds that she is happy to do it, since that is her job. Later, she goes to the place where they refill the tanks, and there comes her partner, who is happy to see her working alone. She tells the protagonist that although she feels proud, doing that is normal. Then, she tells her to be careful when making deliveries. Later, we see that the protagonist is being chased by a bacteria. However, she manages to avoid it, and when he thinks he can escape he reaches a dead end. After this, the bacteria tells her that if he had given it oxygen, it would not have killed it. And there, he launches the attack. But in that moment, a cell that is covered in a yellow suit appears and hits the bacteria. There, the protagonist is confused because she doesn't know who the guy is who is helping her. Then, the cell continues hitting the bacteria without it being able to defend itself. After this, he sprays the liquid from a tank that he carries on his back, so the bacteria dies. There, she thanks him, but he just gives her a thumbs up and runs away. And just at that moment, the white blood cell appears from a sewer. When he gets there, he discovers that the bacteria has already been eliminated. Later, we see that the protagonist tells him that the cell in the yellow suit was the one that killed the bacteria. Upon seeing him, he tells her that this is a monocyte cell, and that sometimes they work together with white blood cells. These are responsible for eliminating bacteria and viruses from the body as well as leukocytes. Afterwards, he tells the protagonist that he can always trust them. Then, we see that the leukocyte goes down the sewer where it came from, and before leaving he tells the protagonist to keep working hard. Later, she passes by a place where the cells gather to rest and enjoy themselves for a while. The monocyte and also the platelets are found there. At that point, they offer her a glucose bun, which is what red blood cells like, and she gladly accepts it. In the next scene, the protagonist is happy to have eaten that delicious bread and says she will return another time. But there, the floor opens and bacteria called Staphylococcus aureus appear. These are bacteria that live on the skin and in the pores, and if they enter the body through a wound, they can cause skin infections, pneumonia, food poisoning, and other diseases. After that, the bacteria go on the attack. But at that moment, the leukocyte appears again from the sewers along with other white blood cells. There, he tells the protagonist to flee from that place. Then, the white blood cells begin to eliminate the staphylococci, leaving only a few alive. And in that, he remembers that this type of bacteria was the ones they fought before and that it took them a lot of work to defeat them. At that moment, these come together in the air and form a structure similar to a bunch of grapes. And when they fuse, they create a giant bacteria. There, it attacks them with its stinger and the leukocytes fall to the ground. After this, the bacteria confesses that it used a new technique to become stronger and more powerful. And when they go to attack her, she uses a net as a shield that prevents them from harming her. After this, the red blood cells realize that she is using the fibrin that platelets use to close the wounds, which is a network-shaped protein that is used to stop blood clotting. After that, it traps the white blood cells in the fibrin and shocks them with electricity. At that moment, the leukocyte mentions that this technique is called coagulase. And there, the bacteria comments that it is invincible, since it has now improved its attack and defense. After this, she throws them against the ground and the leukocytes are seriously injured. And there, scared by the situation, the protagonist runs towards the boy and yells at him to get up quickly or they will kill him. Later, we see that the giant bacteria feels very powerful because they cannot harm it, unlike its stepsister whom they killed in the past. There, it prepares to attack and kill white blood cells. But just at that moment, armed monocytes appear. When they get there, one of them tells the others that they can take off their suits now because they are outside the vein. And upon hearing that, the protagonist recognizes her voice. After this, she is looking forward to finally seeing what monocytes really look like. And there, they take off their helmets and we discover that they are the macrophage girls. Then, one of them explains that when they are in the vein they are monocytes, but when they leave the vein they are macrophages. Seeing this, the protagonist is impressed, since she would never have imagined that they were the ones under that suit. There, they explain to us that macrophages are cells that are responsible for eliminating bacteria and foreign substances from the body. In addition, they clean the remains of dead cells and bacteria. Seeing that it is them, the Staphylococcus gets scared and the bacteria separate and flee. Afterwards, the only one left tries to attack the macrophages, but they are stronger and give it a beating. Finally, she is thrown back the way she came, defeated and humiliated. After this, they say they are happy to help defeat the bacteria. And in that, one of the macrophages makes the same sign with the thumb that we saw at the beginning. Therefore, the protagonist discovers that this is the monocyte that saved her. At that, he goes over to talk to her and asks her how they have so much strength. However, the girl responds that a lady sometimes has to keep secrets. But the protagonist is still amazed when she thinks that macrophages have many abilities, since they are friendly, violent, cleaners, and teachers at the same time. And they always carry out these activities with a smile on their faces. Then in a scene change, we see that a sweat cell worker is worried because there is too little water left. There, he comments that global warming is coming to his world. After this, the protagonist and her friend go along the path of the vein, but they feel very hot. And there, they see that outside the plants look dry from the sun and the lack of water. In this, they explain to us that the erythrocytes are sent to travel along the path closest to the skin. This is a mechanism that the body uses to release heat, causing blood to flow through the veins closest to the skin. And at that moment, the white blood cell boy breaks through the red blood cells and kills a bacteria that came out of a sewer. Seeing this, the erythrocytes around him comment that they do not know how the white blood cell can run in such heat. And there, the protagonist approaches to greet him, but he is melting the bacteria with an aerosol. However, when he goes to get up, he gets dizzy and starts sweating a lot. But there, he tells the protagonist that nothing is happening to him and wipes the sweat from his face. At that moment, she asks him if he doesn't feel hot wearing so many clothes, to which he responds that if he takes them off he won't be able to react in time to a threat. And in a change of scene, they explain that sweat cells are responsible for cooling the body through sweat, and thus maintaining a good temperature. After this, we see the desperate workers because despite expelling heat, their body temperature continues to increase. At that point, the erythrocytes begin to travel through the veins. And there, they explain that when the body feels heat, blood flow increases, since this is another way to regulate temperature. However, this technique does not work for them. Later, the body begins to have light failures and they are left in total darkness. So they tell us that this happens because they are experiencing vertigo and dizziness. This makes you feel like the world is spinning around you and you lose your balance. And at that moment, the red blood cells pass out. This occurs when blood stops flowing to the brain, causing you to lose consciousness for a few seconds or minutes. There, the leukocyte receptor turns on and a bacteria called Bacillus appears. This type of bacteria can be found in soil and water and causes two types of poisoning, diarrhea and vomiting. After this, the bacteria tries to attack the white blood cell. However, instead of doing so, she jumps away taunting him. There, he tells him that he doesn't plan to fight, he's just going to hide until that world ends. Hearing this, the leukocyte runs after him while calling for reinforcements. Then, the other white blood cells arrive, but they cannot find the bacteria because it is hiding among the erythrocytes. Later, he begins to suffer from dizziness and, although he has the red blood cell in front of him, he cannot do anything to it. Finally, he falls to the ground due to heat stroke. And to make fun of him even more, he steals a vial with liquid inside from an erythrocyte and begins to spill it on the floor. In this case, sweat cells report that the water level is so low that they cannot produce more sweat to cool the body, so they can't do anything to avoid dehydration. There, they explain to us that dehydration is caused by a lack of water and does not allow the body's systems and organs to work normally. In a scene change, the bacteria is hitting the leukocyte boy while he is on the ground unable to get up. After this, it lifts it with its tentacles and releases it into the void. However, there we see that the leukocyte when falling is supported by its knives stuck in the rock. Discovering that he hasn't died, the bacteria continues to hit him. However, he says he will do his best to keep the body alive. But at that point, it hits him on the hands, so the leukocyte breaks loose and falls from above. Then, the bacteria starts laughing non-stop while saying that it is going to dominate that world, since no one can stop it. Afterwards, both the bacteria and the cells observe a light in the sky and do not know what it is. Suddenly, the tip of an injector comes out from there, from which a liquid begins to come out. In this, light returns to the body and the temperature returns to normal. As the liquid falls, the cells are happy while drinking water and bathing. There they explain to us that this liquid is an injection that is used to administer liquids and nutrients more quickly through the veins. At that moment, we see that the bacteria realizes that the body is recovering, so it runs away scared. Suddenly, under the water, the leukocyte appears and grabs a tentacle so that it does not escape again. There, he tells her that he feels better now. After this, he deletes it once and for all. Later, they tell us that thanks to the rain they overcame the heat crisis. And while they are enjoying the new climate, the protagonist tells the leukocyte that from now on he should work in cooler clothes. To which he responds that she is right. Then, in a scene change, we see that the colleague tells the protagonist that she is glad that she is improving very quickly at work. However, he still has a lot to learn since he is still very clumsy. To which she responds that she has learned because of his teachings. After that, the companion tells her that thanks to this she can train new erythrocytes. And there, he introduces him to a girl who she must teach everything about the job. But upon seeing her, the protagonist becomes upset because she does not feel capable of instructing a new red blood cell, since she is not yet such a good worker. And in this, the classmate answers that when they were newbies, someone else taught them. Therefore, now they must return that favor with another person. After that, the new woman tells her that it is a pleasure to work with her. There, the protagonist gets nervous because the girl is very calm. At that, she takes out a notebook to teach her the first steps of the work of erythrocytes. However, the girl recites from memory everything she must do and tells her that it is an honor to be able to work with them. And after this, the protagonist is paralyzed when she sees that the girl knows everything about her work. Then, they are ready to go make the first delivery, but the protagonist feels strange because she has no topics of conversation with her. Later, they arrive at a place to distribute oxygen, and there the leading lymphocyte comes out and yells at them that they cannot enter. Afterwards, the protagonist tells her not to worry about it, since it is normal that that lymphocyte has yelled at them. But there, the new girl answers that although the protagonist was in the wrong place, he didn't have to be rude to them. Then she tells her that the job of red blood cells is not to let other cells yell at them. Later, they meet the leukocyte boy who is fighting a bacteria. Upon seeing him, the new woman asks her how an erythrocyte can be a friend of a leukocyte, since they are very violent. But at that moment, the protagonist defends him, saying that he is a good person. However, while she says that, he is sticking his knife into the bacteria. After he kills her, he approaches and tells the girl that it's a pleasure to meet her. But in that, the bacteria is still alive, so he goes again and sticks the knife in, causing a lot of blood to splash on the girls. In a change of scene, they arrive at the place where the cells are cleaned, since a lot of blood fell on them. There, the protagonist feels ashamed because she has not yet taught her anything, and furthermore, she made her get dirty with blood. After that, we see scenes in which the protagonist takes the new red blood cell to different areas of the body while introducing it to other cells. However, it turns out that the new girl already knows everything he's teaching her. In fact, it is she who guides them on the right path. This is because the protagonist gets lost or makes mistakes repeatedly. Then the leukocyte arrives and discovers that she is sad because she cannot do the job she was given well. At that point, the new girl approaches and the protagonist apologizes for not guiding her correctly. Then, she promises that this time she will do it right. She is watching her from afar and is happy to see that now she is making good decisions and is not getting lost with the map. There, they explained that everything was going normally in the body. The cells worked happily until that day came. While the protagonist and the new girl are carrying an oxygen box, a large explosion occurs that destroys the city. After the strong impact, she wakes up to discover that everything is in chaos and the buildings have collapsed. At that moment, the leukocyte arrives protecting a platelet girl in her arms who is scared. But suddenly, a crowd of red blood cells appears running at full speed towards them. There they explain that this occurs when blood pressure increases. After that, we see that at the board of directors they are deciding what to do in this situation, since they must act quickly, or else bacteria will infiltrate. At that moment, the director declares a state of emergency for the force. Meanwhile, outside all the cells are watching the screens as they break the news. There, they explain that there were serious injuries to tissues near the head. And then, through the speakers, they call on the immune cells to be alert to any bacterial threat. After this, they ask the platelets to go to the area to stop blood loss. The erythrocytes are also told to speed up the delivery of oxygen throughout the body. There we can see that the new girl is scared by the situation. However, when she sees the protagonist, she shows her determination and tells her that there will be time to be scared later. Then, she tells her that at this moment the important thing is to deliver oxygen faster than before. In this, they show us that all the body systems are applying emergency mechanisms. Later, the protagonist and the girl are running through a vein that is empty. And there, the new girl stops because she is tired and feels cold. However, the protagonist tells her that they must hurry. In the next scene, the bacteria begin to enter, so the leukocyte acts quickly and eliminates them. Then keep running to find more bacteria and kill them. There, he comments that he will go to the wound as quickly as possible to save the red blood cells that are in danger. After this, upon arriving at the place, he is paralyzed with fear when he sees that there are no living red blood cells left there. Only their uniforms are there. After that, the leukocyte runs around the site looking for a cell, and there he finds a young man with glasses trapped in the rubble. This boy is crying with fear of everything he saw. He says he was there when the red blood cells flew out of the wound, and says he saw thousands of blood cells die. Then, he comments that cells need oxygen to live, however, there are no longer erythrocytes to transport it. The young man then predicts all the actions the body's organs will take to fix it, even though none of it is going to work. Finally, he says that the body is going to cool down and everyone will die from lack of oxygen. After this, he shouts that this world is lost. And in a scene change, the protagonist and the girl are running down a dark hallway. There they find a cell that cannot breathe. After that, more cells appear that can't do it either. This is because all the erythrocytes that distribute oxygen have died. Seeing this, the protagonist leaves her box there and runs off to look for more, so the new girl does the same. While they are running, the scared girl tells her that she doesn't see any other red blood cells. At that, the protagonist stops and realizes that what she says is true. There is no companion nearby. Later, they reach the lung area, and there they see that it is working very quickly. At that moment, an erythrocyte tells the few who are there that they must distribute the boxes, since the lung is producing many, but there are no workers to deliver them. There, the protagonist picks up a box and tells the girl that they must carry all that oxygen. Then, we see that they deliver them to the cells that they encounter along the way, and they are achieving all this while they run without rest. Finally, they reach a very high place where they find other red blood cells. There, platelets are also working hard and with great effort to fulfill their function. When they arrive, they must tie the box on their back and go through a dangerous place surrounding a mountain. After this, they do not show the cells that make decisions about the body. When they observe through the chambers that the erythrocytes are circulating very slowly, they decide to push them through blood pressure. There, a strong wind is sent towards them, causing the rocks they are holding on to break and the erythrocytes begin to fall. In that they explain to us that when there is a wound and a lot of blood comes out, blood pressure increases. Then, the people in charge realize that the pressure has reached the maximum, which means there will be more blood loss. And in a change of scene, the protagonist and the girl continue delivering boxes. However, they are very cold because they are walking through snow. There, they explain that one of the symptoms of hemorrhage is that the temperature drops. This occurs because there are fewer red blood cells circulating through the body. And in that, we realize that the protagonist is carrying a box in her arms and, with ropes tied to her back, she is dragging 2 more. There, the new woman says she can't continue because her hands went numb. After this, she falls to her knees in the snow, and when the protagonist goes to help her get up, she hits her hand and yells that enough is enough. And crying, she says that what they do will be of no use because they will still die, since they need too much oxygen and they are the only ones still alive. Then, she yells at her that she only continues because she wants to show her that she is very good at her job. While saying that, the protagonist puts her hands on her cheeks and tells her that she will continue to transport oxygen until the end because that is her only function. At that moment, she is shocked to hear the seriousness with which the protagonist is speaking. After that, she take her boxes and continue walking. However, she feels very tired from the effort she has made, and think about how hard all cells work to do their job as best as possible. After this, the protagonist falls to the ground and, with her last breath, says she is sorry for not having been a good superior to the new girl. There, she faints, but when she opens her eyes, she looks at a light and sees thousands of erythrocytes around her. Seeing them, she asks where these erythrocytes came from and who they are. At that moment, they too wonder who she is and why she looks so tired and covered in snow. There, the protagonist begins to tell them everything that happened to her body, including the wound and everything else. At that moment, one of the erythrocytes screams that it is not fair that they have been taken to that dying body. Hearing this, the other red blood cells get scared and start screaming too. However, later we see that everyone is calm. And in that, the leading erythrocyte apologizes for acting that way and says that they must do their job well in the body they have been given. There, the protagonist is excited to see that all the erythrocytes are willing to work hard so that everything returns to normal. Then, in a change of scene, we see that the new erythrocytes distributed oxygen throughout the body parts, saving many cells that were about to die. Later, all the cells are happy celebrating that they were able to recover. At that, the protagonist delivers the last box of oxygen and apologizes for being late. Afterwards, she is going to fall to the ground from exhaustion, but the leukocyte catches her. There, he greets her and congratulates her because she did a good job. In a change of scene, they explain to us that the new erythrocytes came to the body through a transfusion. Transfusion is a treatment to replenish blood that consists of removing it from one person and injecting it into another. And there, the leader of the new erythrocytes comments that, despite not being in the body from before, he is happy to be able to work again. At that moment, we see the protagonist and the leukocyte drinking tea together. Suddenly, the new girl appears. She comes furious to say something to the protagonist, so she and the leukocyte are scared of what she is going to do. However, she thanks her for the great training she gave her, since she learned that the most important thing is experience and passion for work. Upon hearing those words from the new girl, the protagonist cries because she thought that she had not been able to teach her anything. Then in a scene change, we see her distributing oxygen. And there, she is happy because she sees that all the cells are working hard like every day. Later, we see the leader of the T cells vigorously training the other soldiers to be prepared in case any bacteria appear. There, they explain to us that they are responsible for killing cells that produce cancer, but also those infected by a virus. At that, the young man who works in the cells closes the window of his room so as not to hear the screams of the leader lymphocyte towards his subordinates. Then he gets sad because, unlike their work, the function of normal cells is very boring. Afterwards, the young man is tired of his obligations because he has to create copies of himself, and this is not interesting at all. There, they explain to us that this process is called cell division, and it consists of dividing a cell into 2 or more, making them equal to each other. At that, the young man, while he is resting, hears a noise outside. When he goes out to see what that sound is, he observes a cell of a pale color, different from normal, and is also wearing a very strange hat. However, the boy is friendly to him. Afterwards, the two of them start looking at the lymphocytes through a window. There, one of them finds a gift and, not knowing who it is from, he gives it to the leader. When he sees him, he gets excited and thinks it's sweet that someone has given him a gift. And there, the strange cell signals the young man to look at what is going to happen when he opens the gift. As the leader opens it, a boxing glove comes out of the box and hits him in the face. So the young man and the cell start laughing non-stop. After this, the leader angrily chases them along with the other lymphocytes. Later, we see that they are hidden and the young man realizes that the strange cell cannot speak, it only makes sounds. However, he finds the joke he made about the fake gift very funny. After that, they sneak around the place to see who else they can play a prank on. In that case, they see the leukocyte walking, but there its receptor turns on and it perceives that there is a bacteria or virus nearby. There, the cell begins to make jokes behind his back, and when the receiver tells him that someone is there and turns around, he disappears. Seeing that it cannot discover it, the foreign cell does it repeatedly without the leukocyte discovering it. After that, they are going to play a trick on the lymphocyte commander, changing sugar for salt. And sipping the tea that is salty, the commander immediately spits it out. Suddenly, the leukocyte appears and realizes that he arrived too late and could not discover the prankster. Later, the protagonist almost falls off a cliff because they placed a paper on a path indicating that it was a shortcut. Luckily, she manages to hold on to the edge and the platelets help her climb up. After that, they exchange the macrophage girl's weapons for toys and run around happily looking for someone else to set a trap for. Up ahead, the young man and the cell are resting. There, he tells her how surprised he is that she comes up with so many good jokes. However, he gets sad because he has to go back to work. And there, the young man invites the stranger to his house for a cup of tea. When he gets there, he tells him that since he lives alone, the only thing he does is his job of dividing cells. For that reason he has no friends. Then, he asks what type of cell it is, since he looks very strange with that hat and blue skin color. In that, the cell creates a ball in its hands that grows and becomes a hat. There, the stranger offers it to him, but he replies that he cannot accept it. After this, the cell insists that he take it. However, we can see that his expression becomes evil and the hat grows teeth that are meant to bury itself in his head. Seeing all this, the young man gets scared and runs out to his balcony, but outside there are more cells that are converting the others by throwing the caps at them. Meanwhile, the workers run desperately to avoid being caught. At that, they grab the young man and throw him to the ground. There, he observes that the cells try to break the machine where he creates the clones. After this, he gets sad because he thought he had made a new friend, but it was just a virus that wanted to use him. And there, he yells at them to stop. Suddenly, enraged lymphocytes appear and start beating up the viruses. There, the young man falls out of the window but is caught below by the leukocyte. After this, the macrophages arrive and together with the lymphocytes they hit the virus cells without them being able to defend themselves. And when the leukocyte arrives, all the viruses have already been eliminated. There, they explain to us that this type of virus is called common cold rhinovirus. Later, they put them in rockets and expel them through sneezing. The lymphocyte and leukocyte then scold the young man for what he did, since he endangered the other cells by helping the virus in its plans. Afterwards, they tell him to study and not keep getting into trouble. Hearing this, he apologizes to everyone and says he won't do it again. In a change of scene, normal cells are playing with immune cells. At that, the leader lymphocyte arrives and the young man tells him to play with them, since they are neighbors and it would be good to have a friendship. There, the leader yells at him that they are murderers and would look ridiculous playing with normal cells. However, as he says that, the other lymphocytes grab him and drag him to the playing field. Afterwards, we see the leader enjoying himself while playing, but he says he will only do it this once. Then, in a scene change, a bacteria comes out of the sewer, so the leukocyte quickly comes to kill it with its knife, but in that, he notices that there is a platelet girl looking at him. After that, we see the protagonist and the new girl going to distribute oxygen. At that moment, the lymphocytes run past and bump into the protagonist, who falls to the ground. After this, the girl extends her hand to lift her up. Then, she is delivering oxygen and nutrients to the cells. There, they thank the protagonist because she always gets into small and uncomfortable places to give them oxygen. And always with a smile he answers that they have nothing to thank, since that is their job. Later, she meets two of the leukocyte's friends, who are worried because they haven't seen him for days. But then they mention that he's probably very busy. There, one of them tells the protagonist that he wants to invite the leukocyte boy to eat so he can relax. Hearing this, she thinks it's a very good idea and mentions that the last time she saw him eat he was eating bacteria soup. Later, we see the leukocyte chasing the original bacteria, and when he manages to reach her, he kills her by crushing her to the ground. But in that moment, a platelet girl appears and is shocked to see all the blood that is spilled in that place. There, the nervous girl apologizes for having interrupted him. However, he feels very embarrassed that she saw him killing the bacteria like that. After this, the girl called Alrevs tells him not to worry. She only asks him to throw her the piece that fell on the floor, since she is training to become stronger. Immediately, he throws it at her but hits it on the head, so the girl falls to the ground and drops all the pieces she was carrying in the basket. At that, Alrevs tells him not to worry, that she is fine. But after this she starts crying. There, he picks up the pieces and asks her what she is doing in that place, and while he says it, he discovers that she is lost, which makes him remember the protagonist. Later, while guiding the girl, he asks her why she is alone. And there, she answers that she is alone because she wants to train her strength so as not to be a problem for her friends by being the weakest of all. Later, she tells him that she feels sad because on one occasion, when all the platelets were gathered, the teacher yelled at her that she should get stronger. For this reason, he is now carrying double the weight and will not return to the others until he is stronger. Upon hearing this, the leukocyte feels tender and wants the girl to accomplish everything she proposes. However, he tells her that she doesn't have to walk alone and that she can return to her teammates to train with them. At that moment, the platelet is excited to hear his words and decides to listen to him. Later, they meet the protagonist, who is very happy to be reunited with the leukocyte after several days. But at that moment, the ground begins to crack and the red blood cells fly upward. After this, the leukocyte wonders where the wound is, but there, his partner explains to him that it is not a wound, since everyone is floating in the air as if there were no gravity. There, he discovers that it is a bump. In that, they tell us that a bump is a lump that forms on the head after a strong blow. And at that moment, Alrevs says it's time to work. Then she says goodbye to him and runs away excited because she wants to show that she is a good platelet. When she arrived with her companions, they did not explain that there was internal bleeding, so they must glue all the red blood cells that are floating with fibrin. At that, the leukocyte looks at the girl and feels proud because she is working hard. Suddenly, the teacher appears and scolds the platelets for not doing their work in an organized manner. Seeing her, the girls get scared. At that point, the teacher realizes that they will not be able to do the work and plans a strategy to motivate them. There, she takes out a medal and says that he will give it to the best worker. Upon hearing the teacher's words, the girls become excited and return to their work with more enthusiasm. At that moment, they begin to form a formation, mounting one on top of the other to complete the fibrin network. But in that moment, the leader drops the last piece that holds the network together, so Alrevs jumps off the cliff to get it back. After this, she manages to catch it and holds onto the fibrin. Seeing this, the girls do advanced clumping formation, and there, the leukocytes and the teacher are impressed, since this is a very difficult task to perform. There, the platelets make a ladder to go down and grab Alrevs by the arm. At that moment, she is excited and comments that the training paid off, and that now she has more strength and was able to hold the leader's hand. There, we see the teacher crying with happiness for the great work they did as a team. After that, he comments that thanks to their work, they managed to successfully stop the bleeding. However, she has doubts because she does not know which of them to give the medal to. There, she says that everyone made an effort, so each one will receive a medal. Hearing this, the girls scream with joy. Then, we see that she gives the medal to Alrevs and tells her that although she was the weakest of the group, now she doesn't have to worry about it thanks to her dedication. Finally, the teacher tells the girls that she is very proud of them and says goodbye with a smile. In a scene change, we see that the memory cell is having a memory where some spheres fall from the sky, and from there, some cells infected with some virus come out and slowly walk towards it. But in that, we see that it was a dream. So he, scared, wakes up in the office he shares with the B lymphocyte. There, he continues thinking about what he saw in the dream, since he is not sure if what he saw was a memory or will happen in the future. In this case, the B lymphocyte tries to get him out of his thoughts and finally succeeds by hitting him in the back with his weapon. There, he tells him to come back to reality and start recording the antidotes, because its job depends on the memory cell telling it which antibody it should use to fight. At that point, they call on immune cells. They ask them to meet quickly because there is an invasion of the virus. When they arrive at the place, he feels terrified because the cells that entered the body are the same as the ones he saw in his dream. After this, the B lymphocyte asks you to get the solution. And there, many cells jump, so they all start running. However, the memory cell does not move, and upon seeing this, the B lymphocyte charges it to flee from that place. But at that moment, white blood cells appear to fight against those cells. Despite that, he is still terrified thinking that it is the end of that world. There, he forces himself to have another prediction about what is happening, like the one he had before. Later, the leukocyte and the other white blood cells are fighting the invaders, but these are too many and appear everywhere. Then, a group of normal cells approach the B cell to tell it to create an antibody to help them. There, he defends himself by saying that he first needs data about the virus to be able to create the antidote. In that, the memory cell says that he must think, since he is the only one who can save that world. However, he cannot think of anything, and, for this reason, he begins to hit himself against the wall to see if in this way he can remember something. Suddenly, a macrophage appears and helps the white blood cell kill a virus. Then she takes him to get checked out and tested. There, he thanks her because he knows that as soon as they examine him, reinforcements will come to help them. But in the meantime, they must resist. After that, the B cell is looking for books to find the cure, and it tells the memory cell to hurry up. But there, he tells him to be silent so he can see the future. After this, the B lymphocyte approaches and tells him that what he should do is think about the past. At that moment, she hits him on the head with a book and this causes him to have the vision. There, he sees a needle coming out of the sky and expelling some spheres from which the cells with the virus come out. However, leukocytes and T lymphocytes easily kill them because they were very weak. In that, we see that they collect some bodies and take them to the memory cell so that they can register it and create the antibody. Afterwards, the memory cell returns to the present and says that that was not a vision of the future. On the contrary, it was something that they already experienced in the past. And there, they explain to us that the needle in the sky is called a vaccine and that it injects antidotes to prevent diseases in the future. After that, we are back to the fight where the white blood cells fight but cannot defeat the virus because it multiplies. In that place, the river divides in two and from there the memory cell and the B lymphocyte rise. These carry with them a weapon that they have just built. After that, before execution it detects all the cells first. After this, he shoots them and the viruses scream in pain. There, they explain to us that the firing of that weapon is the same as what happens when we get vaccinated. Then everyone is celebrating that they managed to eliminate them quickly. And there, both the B lymphocyte and the memory cell feel proud of what they did. At this, the cells around him shout their names in victory. There, the one with memory says that it was thanks to his mind. However, the B cell responds that it is a lie, since that virus had been registered before. But when thinking about the future, he forgot that it had already done it in the past. And after this, it shows the book where it appears. This is a virus that causes mumps disease and causes swelling under the ears. And while the lymphocyte tells everyone about the clumsiness of the memory cell, it remains silent, dead of shame. In a change of scene, the leukocyte takes the protagonist and the new girl to discover the small intestine. This is the place where the food we consume is processed. There, she thanks him for taking them, since it is the first time she visits him. Then he says he is going to buy tea for everyone and is coming back. But along the way it encounters T lymphocytes. There, the leader claims that this is not a tourist place. Instead, their thousands of cells fight to the death against bacteria every day. However, he replies that he was only guiding the erythrocyte girls who did not know the small intestine. Suddenly, some bacteria appear and throw a large rock that breaks the windows. After this, the leukocyte tells the leader that they will have that conversation later. And there, he asks him that what he should do at that moment is cover them. At that, the leader is surprised to hear the seriousness with which the leukocyte speaks. Afterwards, they explain to us that this type of bacteria causes fever, diarrhea, and pain in the abdomen. And at that moment, one of the bacteria takes a cell hostage and tells the white blood cells to do what it asks, or else it will kill it. After this, they dance and fight among themselves, making fools of themselves because the bacteria asks them to. However, they did all this in vain, as she lied to them and did not release the hostage. Instead, it sent more bacteria to attack them. In that, the T lymphocytes are looking through the cameras. And there, we see the leader furious because the leukocyte allowed the bacteria to mock him. After that, he says he can't wait any longer and decides to go fight. The bacteria then discover a passageway to infiltrate the rest of the body. And after this, they reach a place where the nutrients are. When they get there, a man begins to prepare food for them and he asks them to eat it all, since that will be their last dinner. At that moment, the other cells appear. There, we realize that they set a trap for the bacteria. And it was all thanks to the leukocytes, which signaled the T lymphocytes to take the bacteria to that place. After that, they delete them. However, the leukocyte feels that it forgot something. And there, he remembers that he left the erythrocytes waiting for him and did not buy them tea. Then, in a scene change, the protagonist is delivering nutrients to a cell. And at that moment, there is an emergency call because something is happening to the skin. After this, the mast cell, which is the cell responsible for reacting to harmful substances, releases histamine throughout the body, which causes the cells to become wet. There, histamine mixes with the nerves and short circuits, so the cells are electrocuted. Later, they are furious and go to the mast cell's office to complain about having expelled so much of this liquid. And there, she responds that her job is to react that way to dangerous substances. In this, the protagonist and the leukocyte calm the normal cells, explaining to them that it was only fulfilling its function. But at that moment, she gets angry and kicks the normal cells out of her office. This happens after one of them accused her of being hysterical and making them work too much. Later, the protagonist meets an old man, who is a cell in charge of skin care. Suddenly, they see that a saw is cutting through the ceiling and releasing smoke that stuns the erythrocytes. There, they are blown into the hole by the strong wind. At that moment, they explain to us that this was caused by a mosquito, which is a parasitic insect that sucks human blood and can transmit many viruses. Later, we see that the protagonist covers her nose so that the smoke does not affect her. But, despite that, the wind is very strong and is absorbing it upwards. And at that, the old man, who is clinging to a tree, offers him his hand. However, the mosquito stops drawing blood and the wind stops. As the protagonist and the old man fall to the ground, they see that there is a mask on the ground. At that, he picks it up out of curiosity and puts it on. There, the mask digs into his face and possesses him with something evil, transforming him into another person. After this, he says that its name is dengue. Then he tears a leaf off a bush and a strong wind blows. This causes the masks to stick to other skin cells, turning them all into dengue viruses. After that, the mast cell must expel histamine again to end dengue. However, remember that last time the normal cells were angry with her. So he decides not to do it this time and comments that someone will take care of it. After this, the protagonist and two normal cells are surrounded by the elderly possessed by dengue. And when they are going to attack, another discharge of histamine occurs that floods the body again. At that, the pet comments that she did it because that is her job. Suddenly, the leukocyte appears along with the other white blood cells and the macrophage girl. There, they begin to eliminate infected cells. Then, they tell us that immune cells were able to eliminate the dengue virus before it multiplied. And there, the protagonist is impressed that a mosquito bite has caused all that damage. After that, the leukocyte thanks the mast cell for expelling the histamine, since this gave them time to arrive and eliminate them. Furthermore, the normal cells also thank her and apologize for calling her hysterical. Hearing their apology, she blushes. However, she angrily tells them that they always did their job well. In a change of scene, the white blood cell is passing through the hair root and its receptor alerts it that there are bacteria there. Then, you realize that the area is inflamed. After this, we see that there are bacteria forcing the hair cells to work, giving them whipping. There, they explain to us that these workers are hair stem cells, and that they are responsible for creating hair by dividing among themselves. At that, an old man falls to the ground because he can't continue working, and there a young man comes to help him. But at that, the bacteria prepares its whip to hit him. However, just before it can hit it, the leukocyte appears and pierces the bacteria with its knife. Afterwards, they are glad to have been saved. And there, they tell him that before they used to produce oil and color, but now they are enslaved by the acne bacteria. And in that, they explain to us that when the pores become clogged with bad fat called sebum, a pimple is created, which is an inflammation of the skin that can cause pain and create a substance called pus. After this, more acne bacteria appear, which are what cause pimples. And at that moment, a child goes towards the bacteria to fight them. But just when the monster is about to kill him, the leukocyte quickly runs to save him. At that point, the bacteria bites him from behind and throws him to the bottom of some rocks. There, we see that both the leukocyte and the child are still alive. After that, the little boy apologizes because it was his fault. However, he answers that he did nothing wrong. After this, he asks who those monsters are. And there, the child begins to tell the story. He says that it all started as a minor problem, when the pipe through which they send the hair became dirty with sebum. Sebum is something that bacteria really like. Then, he comments that because of this, more and more bacteria arrived and enslaved them, making them work very hard and without rest. Later, he says that many white blood cells have gone there. However, they all died and now the lifeless bodies of the leukocytes are part of the pus. Hearing this, the leukocyte is terrified, as he did not know that so many colleagues had died from acne bacteria. And when he finishes telling the story, the crying boy says that he wishes he could be strong like them. But there, he tells him that he is not going to allow any bacteria to do as they please, but they must work together. And then, the leukocyte gives his cap to the child. At that, we see that he stops crying and looks at him with admiration. After this, the bacteria are whipping the hair cells. Suddenly, the leukocyte jumps out from the bottom and stabs one of them. Seeing that he is still alive, the bacteria enjoys it because now it will make him suffer even more. And there, the leukocyte climbs over and stabs him in the eye with his knife. After this, he asks him how he killed so many of his companions while being so slow. And he explains that he doesn't care how strong the white blood cells are, they can regenerate infinitely thanks to sebum. That in that place they have it everywhere, allowing their wounds to heal. In that, the child sees that the white blood cell is suffering, and there he hears the old man say that it is impossible to defeat the bacteria. After this, the child yells at the old man that he is a fool because of him the other cells live in fear of acne bacteria. There, the other cells say they think the same and prepare to fight with all their might. Then, we see them working very hard and they say that this is their home, so they must defend it. And there, they begin to move a mechanism to remove a liquid and sink the bacteria. Seeing what they are trying to do, she gets scared and tries to flee. But at that moment, the white blood cell thinks about its dead companions and the crying child. Remembering this, he is filled with hatred and breaks through the bacteria. However, after killing her he also falls into the water. And there, not being able to swim, he runs out of oxygen. Later, we see the white blood cells arrive. At that, the child is crying because the leukocytes surely died from drowning. But suddenly, it comes out of the sewer full of yellow liquid. When they see him, everyone gets scared, but he says he looks like that because he fell into a grease pipe. There, the boy is excited that he is alive and runs to hug him. Then, he thanks him for protecting them and says that now they will continue to take care of the hair. In a change of scene, there is another virus infecting people. However, white blood cells arrive and manage to kill them. At that, the young man who works in the normal cells is bored watching from his balcony. There, he comments that the same thing always happens. A virus appears, the immune cells eliminated and everything returns to normal. Instead, they never do anything interesting and their everyday work is always the same. Later, we see him walking next to a river as he continues to complain. There he says that he would like someone to thank him, even just once, for saving him. And at that moment, he notices that there are some baby bacteria in the water that are fighting against the current. When he sees them, the first thing he thinks about is telling his white blood cells. However, he decides to take care of it himself. In that case, he rescues them with a stick, and seeing that the baby bacteria are happy, this makes him very tender. At that moment, a lymphocyte shouts at him what he is doing there, and he, scared, hides them under his shirt so that they are not discovered. Then he says he better leave them there so he doesn't get into any more trouble. But when he leaves them, they follow him because they think he is their mother. And in a change of scene, we see that the young man took the bacteria to his house. There, he feels afraid because if they discover him, they could kill him too. And then, they knock on the door and it is the leukocyte that perceives a bacteria with its receptor. After this, by chance, the protagonist appears and comes to give him an oxygen box. Getting no response from anyone, he kicks the door open and discovers that the young man has the baby bacteria in a basket. Later, he confesses to them that he did it because he thought that if the white blood cells saw them, they would kill them. After that, we see the protagonist playing with them while the leukocyte is thinking about what he should do. Afterwards, the young man comments that the bacteria are probably hungry, but he has nothing to give them. And there, the leukocyte tells him that it is time to eliminate them, since these bacteria will grow and affect the body's cells. However, at that moment, he runs away with the basket because he receives an emergency call. And when he takes them, the young man is sad, although he understands that this is the job of the leukocyte. Later, it reaches the stomach. There, he discovers that it is a bacteria called Helicobacter that affects the human stomach. Then, he comments that these are so resistant that they can live in gastric acid. Upon seeing it, the leukocyte is going to attack it, so it leaves the basket with the babies there. But then, the young man arrives and thinks about saving them. However, he sees that the leukocyte is risking his life to take care of the body, and instead he is worried about saving some bacteria. There, the Helicobacter causes a collapse. After this, the young man runs to save the babies so that the debris does not crush them. There, he manages to save them, but tells them that he is sorry for being just an ordinary cell and not being able to protect them. Then, he explains to them that they are bacteria that harm the body, and that is why they are going to kill them. Then she asks them to remember that at least someone cared about them. And there, the Helicobacter makes fun of seeing a cell protecting some bacteria. Following that, he launches a wave of gastric acid at them and the white blood cell runs to save the young man. There, everyone is fine, but he notices that a baby bacteria is missing. At that, he sees that it is in the gastric acid and he is surprised to see that it does not burn. After that, the little girl gets angry and hits the Helicobacter. And there, the white blood cells are surprised to see that the baby hurt them with that attack. Then, the giant bacteria discovers that this is a lactic acid, which are good bacteria that live in the stomach and help fight bad bacteria. Additionally, they convert sugar into energy for growth. After this, it begins to throw many blows at it, so the Helicobacter has to flee. But there, the leukocyte takes advantage of the fact that it came out of the gastric acid and jumps on top of her, stabbing her with his knife. Afterwards, the young man is confused, while the baby bacteria jump happily around him. At that point, the leukocyte comes walking and he gets scared and tries to hide them. And there he tells him that this incident made him understand that this type of bacteria works in the intestinal flora and is beneficial for the body. Then, the young man says goodbye to one of them so that she can go to his family. In a change of scene, we see that the young man is carrying the other 3 baby bacteria in his arms, and seeing him excited, the leukocyte asks him if he wants to accompany him on patrol, to which the happy young man answers yes. After this, the protagonist arrives and tells him that he forgot to sign for the oxygen when he received it. Later, she bids them farewell to continue with her work. The leukocyte then shows the young man the small intestine, and there he is impressed since it is the first time he has gone to that place. In that, you observe the nutrients that the stomach has processed and that are converted into food for the cells. In addition, they notice that the stomach accumulates an excessive amount of purines, which are not necessary for the body. Then, a little girl jumps out of the young man's arms and begins to eat the purines. There we discovered that it belongs to that type of bacteria. Then her companions come to look for her. Seeing this, the young man is glad that another bacteria has found her family. Later, they are walking and the little girl who is red jumps into the water and is carried away by the current. After this, the young man runs after it, however, he cannot recover it. There, he asks the leukocyte to find it, but it answers that it cannot do so, and all they can do is wait for a capable cell to find it and determine if it is a good bacteria. After that, the young man is crying because he is surely going to die. Suddenly, the NK appears and informs them that it is their responsibility to eliminate any cells that look suspicious. At that moment, he threatens the boy with his sword. In a scene change, we see that the little red bacteria is sleeping comfortably in the dendritic cell's house. There, she wakes up and the boy comments that he found her passed out in the drain outside, and realizing that she is hungry, he offers her a cookie. In a change of scene, the young man with normal cells searches everywhere for the red bacteria, but cannot find it. In that case, the leukocyte arrives with the NK, and there, he asks her why she is there helping them. To which the woman answers that she is looking for something else. Suddenly, cells infected with the influenza virus appear. This is the type of virus that causes flu, headaches, and joint pain. At that moment, the NK woman grabs one of the knives from the leukocyte and throws it at the infected cells. However, it fails to harm him. Then, the virus takes the knife and attacks them back, breaking their other weapon. After this, their bodies transform and their muscles begin to grow. Seeing this, the leukocyte and the NK are surprised. But there, the memory cell and the B lymphocyte appear, and in that, the latter shoots the antivirus liquid at him, but is unsuccessful. Then, the memory cell falls to the ground scared and tells them to run away because it is the end of the world. And after that, he realizes that their caps have a variation that makes them more powerful, which prevents immune cells from eliminating them. There, we see that these begin to infect other normal cells. Afterwards, they run through a tunnel, but suddenly a strong virus appears and passes through the walls, and a large rock is about to fall on the young man. However, the leukocyte protects him and he receives the blow of the rock on his back. At that, the NK cell attacks them with its sword, but they dodge all the attacks. When her techniques don't work, she feels ashamed because the normal cells scream at her, asking why she can't eliminate them if it is the killer cell. At that moment, the viruses run in a circle forming a large whirlpool that causes stomach pains. There, the NK, scared, falls to its knees and says it surrenders. And there we see that this happens when immune cells feel stress. This makes them depressed and lazy. Meanwhile, the white blood cell is encouraging her to stand up and fight. In this, from afar, the dendritic cell sends her a photo so that she look at it and get motivated. And when she sees that the photo is from when she was a young macrophage, she gets very angry because she doesn't want anyone to know about her past. At that moment, it hits the leukocyte and the B lymphocyte so that they do not look at it. After this, she becomes very violent, so we see that she has regained her motivation. After that, the dendritic cell tears off a horn from the small bacteria and drinks the contents. And there, she gets a new transformation, changing his clothes. Then, they explain to us that lactic acid bacteria help dendritic bacteria. At that, the boy goes outside and everyone is surprised by his new appearance. There, he throws photographs at each of them and asks them to look at them and remember what they felt at that moment. After this, they explain to us that these photos are cytokine, which is a protein that cells expel and stimulates other cells. And at that moment, the boy scatters all the photos in the air, although they ask him not to. And there, the immune cells look at their memories of the past and are ashamed of it. However, they quickly become determined and manage to destroy the virus quickly. Then, in a change of scene, the moment arrives in which the young man has to say goodbye to the red bacteria. There, her family arrives to look for her and, before leaving, moved, she asks the little girl to take good care of herself. Suddenly, the battle-wounded leukocyte appears. He tells the young man that he only has one small bacteria left, since the others found their home. And now, his task is to look for the name of the small black bacteria. In the next scene, we see the NK cell who continues to be embarrassed by the photos. Suddenly, the leukocyte arrives and gives her a glass of tea. There he asks her what she was looking for in the drain last time. At that, she finally tells him the truth. She explains that they must eliminate all suspicious cells, since the cancer cell that the leukocyte killed previously has reproduced and is somewhere in the body. Upon hearing this, he is paralyzed with fear, since that cell is very powerful and if it returns, many of them will die. After this, we see the cancer boy who laughs at the thought that his return is about to come. In a change of scene, they are walking through a tunnel and the young man thinks that the white blood cell has been very quiet since it spoke to the NK cell. After that, they reach the large intestine. There, they explain to us that the large intestine is an organ that absorbs water and minerals and produces feces. Furthermore, this organ is responsible for carrying out the final phase of digestion and is divided into 3 parts: the cecum, the colon, and the rectum. Then, they comment that 100 billion bacteria of different types live there, both good and bad for the body. In that place, the leukocyte and the young cannot bear the bad smell produced by the creation of feces. And suddenly, the protagonist appears, who can't breathe from the smell either. There, he comments that the smell is stronger because there are bacteria that are causing a toxic gas in the environment. And upon hearing this, both the protagonist and the young man become alarmed, since they are afraid of being invaded by bacteria again. Later, she passes by an amusement park, and there they show us that bacteria that are good for the body also live in the large intestine, like the little ones that the young man rescued. Then, they comment that bad bacteria also live in that place, which are fought by white blood cells. Finally, there are bacteria called opportunistic. These are neither good nor bad, but they take advantage of both when it suits them. After that, the protagonist finds the platelets and travels through that area of the body with them, learning more about how they work. And in a change of scene, the little bacteria is making a lot of noise under the young man's shirt, so the leukocyte tells it to be silent or else the NK cell will discover them. However, she hears what they are talking about and tells them that she doesn't care what they do with the bacteria. Later, they meet T lymphocytes. There, they are looking for a powerful cell that is in that area. But then, the leader tells them that since he has already fought against that cell before, he will go to the front on the mission. After that, he hugs his companions, who find it strange that he is so affectionate. There, the leader comments that the mission he will do will be very dangerous and he may not survive. However, we see that he is happy. And there, the subordinates murmur among themselves that he is that happy because he was promoted at work, so it is now a memory T lymphocyte. But while he is talking, the NK cell kicks him and he falls into a pool. At that, she begins to mock the leader, but the leukocyte tells her that mocking like that will not help her regain her self-confidence. After this, she helps him out of the pool. But there, the leader observes the normal cell and shouts to the leukocyte that if it joins with them, then it will not be able to kill even one bacteria. In this case, the small bacteria makes a sound and the leukocyte takes the young man away from there to prevent the lymphocytes from discovering it. And at that moment, the young man becomes curious and asks him who this enemy is that they talk so much about. Hearing this, everyone responds at the same time that it is a cancer cell. After that, the young man becomes very afraid because he knows that this cell is very dangerous for the body. Then, the leukocyte tells you that for this reason it is time to separate. And there, he apologizes for not being able to accompany him to look for the home of the little bacteria. After this, he gives him directions to where the exit is. However, before leaving, the young man asks him why, if his job is to kill, he decided to help a simple bacteria and a normal cell. To which he responds that he did it precisely for that reason, since he's always killing bacteria. He now wants to help one of the good ones. At that, he caresses the little bacteria, says goodbye to the young man and then leaves. And in a change of scene, the protagonist is next to the platelets making the journey through the large intestine. At that moment, a cooling tube breaks and toxic gas begins to escape. There, they manage to repair it, but this is of little use because the gas escapes again. After this, the worker explains that this happens because the intestine is in very bad condition. Later, we see the young man carrying the bacteria back to his family. There, he tells her that, despite having had scary moments, they also had fun. Then, he tells her that he never had a friend to play with and that he always lived alone and bored. But now he is happy since he met them. At that moment, he hears that a gut flora worker is scared, since the bacteria from that place are going to invade them at any moment. There, they explain to us that this is the goblet cell, which is responsible for fighting bacteria in the intestinal flora of the large and small intestine. Next, we see another cell called the enterocyte, whose job is to collect water and nutrients. In addition, it is responsible for building barriers to protect the body from strong attacks by immune cells. There, they are worried about the problem that is coming. And after this, the enterocyte returns to the water to continue defending, even though the goblet asks it not to do so. At that moment, a wall breaks and a strong pressure of water begins to come out. Then, bacteria enter from that hole in the wall. There, they say that they are going to take over the entire place. Upon seeing them, the young man and the other workers flee while being chased by them. In a change of scene, the protagonist is next to the platelets looking for an exit to escape the toxic gas. Next, we see the white blood cell, the lymphocyte, and the NK cell walking down the drain. And then, as the path is narrow, the NK and the leader begin to push each other. Then, as usual, they start a fight while the leukocyte looks at them disappointed. Up ahead, they continue down the path and the ground around them cracks. From there, many arms appear that try to catch them. After that, we realize who it is that is attacking them. It is, neither more nor less, the cancer cell that has returned from the dead. However, the NK cell manages to break free and pierces him with the sword, so the cancer falls to the ground. There, they suspect something strange because it was very easy for them to defeat him. But at that moment, they hear a voice and it comes from the cell that is still alive. Then, he mocks them for letting themselves be fooled, since the one who attacked them was just a puppet. Just then, a huge rock falls from above and pushes them to a deep floor where they finally see the cancer cell. There, they explain to us that these cells are an abnormality of the body that multiply without order and without respecting healthy cells. Following that, he remembers that the last time he faced the three and, coincidentally, now he meets them again. However, he is sure that luck will now be on his side. After this, the cancer catches them with its giant arms and then throws them against one of the walls. After the blow, the NK laughs and tells him that his attacks are very predictable. But on the ground are the other two, trapped without being able to move. Then asks him why he has returned if, like last time, he will end up dead again, since she knows all his movements by heart. There, he answers that he does not want to fight because he has already found his true purpose. And after this, replicas of it form and come to attack them. There, he explains to them that these are puppets like the one they killed earlier, which he can create from their tissues. However, they cannot die if they are stabbed. Following this, he tells them that the only thing they can do is allow themselves to be captured. But then, they manage to break free and together they eliminate many cancer replicants. After this, the leader warns her not to underestimate him because, being a T-cell by heart, he knows all her attacks. Afterwards, she tries to track all his movements, but when she goes to hit him, a woman appears and stops her from hitting him. She defends cancer by saying that it is not a threat, because the cancer cell was born in that body like everyone else. For that reason, it will not allow them to attack a cell coming from the same body. And there, we see that the woman is the regulatory lymphocyte who studied with him in the military school, along with the commander of the lymphocytes. In that, they explain to us that she is in charge of controlling what the lymphocytes do so that it does not affect the rest of the body. However, the leader cannot believe that she is defending cancer. Then, the cell forms hands on the ground that surround them. Later, one of these turns into a spear and goes in the direction of the leader. But at that moment, the leukocyte jumps to protect his friend and receives the impact of the spear on his back. After this, he falls to the ground very badly injured. Afterwards, Cancer comments that he knew he would want to protect him. There, he forms a glass container around them and suggests that they talk calmly without trying to kill each other. In a change of scene, we see the young man next to the two workers, fleeing from the bacteria down the drain. But just then, the wall breaks and a large wave drags them to the bottom. Then, we return to the leukocyte scene. There, the leader fights the regulatory cell, but she easily defeats him. Immediately afterwards, he falls defeated and she steps on him to the ground. In that, we see that the leukocyte has recovered from the wound and desperately asks the cancer to leave its partner alone. In exchange, he proposes that they free him and fight him. Then, it screams at the regulatory cell to let it go so it can kill the cancer. However, she answers that she will not allow it. and there repeat again that this is a cell of the body and deserves to live like everyone else. In this, they explain to us that its function is to control the activity of immune cells so that they cannot attack other beneficial cells or bacteria. And as the cancer cell was created in the body, it does not recognize it as a foreign substance, so it won't let the immune cells hurt him. There, the cancer tells the white blood cell how sad it is to see the cells die. He comments that, whether they are good or bad, none of them deserve to die. Then he mentions how unfair it is that all the cells sacrifice themselves in fight, just to keep the body alive. Finally, he reveals that his plan is to keep them alive, even if it means the end of that world, because only in that way can they be truly free. Following this, the cancer tells him that he will not be able to do anything to prevent it since the regulatory lymphocytes are on his side. And just at that moment, some lumps form on his back from which enormous arms emerge. Then, he tells him that in the new world they can be friends. After that, it grows wings and begins to rise upwards. And there, we realize that the transformation has already begun in the body. That is why the leukocyte screams at it to stop. Following this, we can see that the lymphocyte and the NK cell are being crushed by balls formed of infected cells. Then, they manage to free themselves and the furious NK runs towards the cancer telling him that she is tired of listening to him. But just at that moment, the regulatory cell appears and kicks her, throwing her away from there. Subsequently, the lymphocyte begins to hit her, but to no avail as she blocks all of its attacks. And while that's happening, the NK yells at him to try a different technique because that one isn't working for him. However, the regulator tells her that she has always been like this, lacking strategy, dominated by his emotions and without learning from his defeats. It is for this reason that he will never defeat her. And in that moment, we see memories of when he was a boy, and the lymphocyte commander always defeated him. Then, in a scene change, we see the young man continuing to walk through the drain with the little girl in his arms. Suddenly, bacteria appear and surround him. There, they throw a toxic gas at him that burns his feet. Following this, they explain to us that the gases coming from these bacteria produce many negative things for the body, such as bad smell in stool and gas, constipation, or diarrhea. At that moment, the little bacteria gets angry and jumps towards one of them. However, the attack is so weak that she throws it into the water just by using her fingers. There, they tell the bacteria that it is a fool for joining a cell in the body. Immediately afterwards, the young man yells at him to run away and not to worry about him. But since she doesn't pay attention to him, he throws stones at her to make her leave. And there, seeing that the young man is angry, the little bacteria leaves sad because her friend no longer loves her. However, we can understand that the young man treated her that way so that she could be saved. Following this, he feels sad for saying goodbye in that way, but he had no other option. And although he feels bad, deep down he is satisfied because the important thing is that she survives. Finally, he wanted to become a strong bacteria in the future. But at that moment, they show us the opportunistic bacteria. These are bacteria that by themselves neither help nor harm, and they make up approximately 70% of the bacteria in the intestine. There, the harmful ones are thinking of the cruelest way to torture the young man. And in that, they decide to gouge out his eyes. But when they are about to do it, the white blood cells appear, and one of them pierces him with his sword, so they retreat in fear while they chase them. However, they realize that they outnumber them, and just at that moment, they hear loud footsteps of something that is approaching. This is when a large group of beneficial bacteria arrives. These are responsible for helping to defend against evil attacks, and in addition, they stimulate the activity of the intestine. After this, the good bacteria chase the harmful ones and defeat them. And there, the leader of the bad guys demands that the opportunists help him. However, they are no longer on their side and they respond that they will now ally themselves with the tender and beautiful bacteria. Then, in a change of scene, we see the protagonist with the platelets arriving at a safer place. Upon arrival, they realize that toxic gas is no longer coming out. Instead, now pure air comes out that can be breathed. There, the protagonist remembers that the leukocyte told her that toxic gas occurred when there was an imbalance in the intestine, and the bad bacteria outweighed the good ones. Afterwards, she thinks about him and hopes he is okay. After this, we return to the fight against cancer and it has trapped the lymphocyte in the NK cell. However, he assures that he will not kill them. He will only make them suffer. And at that, he hits the leader hard and tells him that he hates him for calling him a bug the previous time they fought. At this point, cancer cells begin to multiply rapidly. There, the leader tells him that he is not done with him yet, and as he gets up he mentions that he still has an ace up his sleeve. Then, he shouts that he will use his secret technique called perforin cannon punch. However, when he says this, everyone is confused because he does not understand what he means. And in that, we see a flashback to when the leader was training at military school. There his teammates are impressed to see how much he has improved. After this, they tell him that there is a secret technique that few people can master, and then they show us a lymphocyte that lived a while ago, doing the perforin cannon punch technique. Then, they explain to us that perforin is a chemical substance produced by T lymphocytes when they attack infected cells. They say that perforin is so powerful that when someone receives it, they fly away as if they had been hit by a giant fist. Upon hearing this, the leader is motivated to train harder to be able to do it. And there, the friends who told him that story make fun of him while he trains because they think it's just a made-up story. At that, the leader tries to make the hit, but he gets a cramp in his arm and the boys laugh at him even more. However, we see that the regulatory cell is watching him train with great determination to achieve it. Then, we return to the present and the leader prepares to make the hit. And when he goes to execute it, the regulatory cell is impressed because it seems that now he is going to achieve it. And at the last moment, she dodges him, but the cancer cell takes the hit and falls several meters, breaking the ground. Seeing that he was able to do it, the leader is crying because he finally did it. There, the leukocyte and the NK cell are amazed. Later, the cancer complains to the girl for having dodged the blow, since her job is to protect him. The regulatory cell then tells the leader that it seems like she was confused this whole time because he is not a cell she should protect. Then, the cancer tells her that since she is no longer his ally, he is going to eliminate her like the others, and in that, he catches them with the long hands that come out from his back. But there, the NK cell frees itself by cutting it with its sword. And after this, he tells her that he had already warned her that she knows all his movements. However, he answers that cutting it will be of no use, since it can create infinite replicas. At that moment, the puppet replicas join together and form a giant. There, they can't believe what they see. After this, the giant crushes them with his hand. But when they break free, they try to hurt him and fail, since its skin is very resistant and regenerates. In addition, replicas continue to grow from his body. In that, we see that while the lymphocyte leader, the NK and the regulator are fighting against the cells, he is laughing because he has the world under his control. Suddenly, his body undergoes another transformation and more wings sprout from his back. Following this, he orders the giant to finish them off once and for all. And there, the giant joins his hands and crushes them. In that, the cancer cell says that it is finally the beginning of the new world and that they will finally be free. But then, the giant falls to the ground and his transformation is undone. Then the 3 immune cells pierce the giant from the inside and jump towards it. And when it reaches the cancer, the NK cell stabs it with its sword. Then, he reminds them that the cuts do not hurt him, since he can recover as many times as he needs to. However, we see that he cannot maintain the power and his wings are destroyed. As they fall, we hear the voice of the white blood cell telling us that the beneficial bacteria defeated the bad ones. Therefore, these can no longer give it the power to continue expanding. And with that, the cancer looks at the glass container and realizes that it is broken. Suddenly, the leukocyte appears behind him and plunges his knife into his neck. There, we see that everything happens so quickly that the cancer is confused and begins to leak a lot of blood from the wound and from the mouth. And when he falls to the ground, the leukocyte steps on his arm. After this, the cancer laughs, admitting that they defeated him again. However, he says he's happy he was killed by a friend and not someone he hates. Finally, he says goodbye to the leukocyte and tells him that he is his gentle murderer, promising that they will meet again another time. And there the cancer cell dies for the last time. Then, in a scene change, we see the young man crying with joy because he was reunited with the black bacteria and the other 3 who are already giants. There, he thanks them for coming to his rescue. Afterwards, we see the lymphocytes celebrating the victory, and the leader is happy because the secret technique worked for him. Later, the beneficial bacteria repair the walls of the intestine after the damage caused by the harmful ones. At that, the young man thanks his small black bacteria, which, like the other 3, has already grown a lot. At that moment, the white blood cell appears and tells him that he did a good job of returning the lactic acid bacteria. Therefore, the young man contributed to the victory. After this, the leukocyte thanks the young man for saving them. Upon hearing these words, the young man remembers when he said that what he wanted most was for someone to thank him for saving him. And in that, the little giant bacteria gives them a hug and immerses them in the intestinal flora where the other beneficial bacteria are. There, they explain to us that hundreds of billions of bacteria live in the intestine that look like fields of flowers, and for this reason, they are called intestinal flora. Seeing this, the leukocyte and the young man are surprised at the beautiful world where they live. Then, in a change of scene, the leukocyte and the protagonist meet again to eat. And there, she is happy that he is fine and that the body has been saved. Later, the leader of the lymphocytes is teaching the fist technique to the other trainees. However, they do not believe that the perforin thing is true and think that it is only teaching them a normal punch. Finally, we see the protagonist distributing oxygen while saying that this is the human body, where billions of cells live and work hard day after day.